This is a cultivation story of a person and a family developing together. The soul is reborn in the cultivation world, with the cultivation world resources as the top priority. It opens up a business route, provides personal resources for cultivation, assists the family in integrating cultivation resources, and promotes the development of the family and business routes, complementing each other, pushing the family and individuals to the top of the cultivation world. Main characters. Zisheng keywords of the novel. Family Immortal Cultivation. Cultivating sword and alchemy, practicing body without pop-ups, Family Immortal Cultivation. Cultivating sword and alchemy, practicing body. Download the complete set of TXT. Family Immortal Cultivation. Cultivating sword and alchemy, practicing body. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Zisheng. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Zisheng Southern Capital, Southern Barbarians. The main peak of Yunling Peak rises high into the clouds, and the leaning peaks stand around like loyal soldiers guarding Yunling Peak. Among the biased peaks, there are 8 peaks, lower than Yunling Peak and higher than other peaks, collectively known as the Yunling 9 Peaks, along with the main peak. Between the peaks and forests, there are green trees and lush grass, as if putting a layer of green clothing on Yunling Peak. As the sun rises, the warm sunshine caresses the Yunling Peak. The dewdrops on the green leaves, like stars embellishing the moon sky, shimmer in the Yunling Peak like elves responding to the sun. Under the main peak, clouds and mist surround, and cranes indulge in it. Yunling Peak is a famous blessed place in the southern barbarian cultivation world. A secluded room located halfway up Yunling Peak, surrounded by several small pits that are clean and dust-free, covered with patterns. This is the gathering array of the secluded room. Gather the spiritual energy of Yunling Peak for those who have made contributions to practice in seclusion. There is a tuanpu in the middle, which also has a gathering effect, and the spiritual energy around it flows towards the tuanpu. A young man, dressed in a blue-gray robe and holding a magic spell in both hands, sat cross-legged on a round pu at the age of about 17 or 18. Spiritual energy flowed around the young man's body along the round pu, slowly flowing into his body and being absorbed and refined by the young man. His expression was extremely enjoyable. Suddenly, the young man's face changed slightly, his eyebrows furrowed slightly, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. This was the crucial time for the young man to cultivate. The young man touched the bag on his left side, and 3 spiritual stones protruded from each hand. Then, he pinched them and quickly changed the method. The spiritual energy of the spiritual stones was immediately absorbed by the young man, and the entire spiritual energy in the closed room flowed towards the young man, directly entering his body. After a while, a mouthful of turbid energy protruded, and after a while, a mouthful of turbid energy protruded. Practicing 6 levels of qi, the young man raised his mouth and finally practiced 6 levels of qi. The family has requirements and cultivates valuable family cultivators. Only by breaking through the 6th level of qi cultivation and possessing self-protection ability can they go out and contribute their own strength to the family. The cultivation of immortals in the realm of cultivation can be divided into 5 realms. Qi cultivation, foundation building, golden elixir, yuanying, and transformation of gods. Except for the 9 small realms of qi cultivation, the rest are divided into 4 realms. Early, middle, late, and peak. Every advancement in the realm will earn more longevity elements until reaching longevity. In this realm of cultivation, every cultivator is racing against time, practicing towards the realm of transforming gods, hoping to ascend to the upper realm, obtain immortality, and become a god. Yunling Peak is the ancestral land of the Li family, and the youth are Zisheng, a cultivator of the Li family. Although Zisheng is a person from this world, his soul comes from another world called Earth. Zisheng has been a person of 2 generations, more calm than his peers, able to endure loneliness, endure hardship, and have a longing for the world of cultivation and immortality. He attaches great importance to cultivation and is a famous ascetic in the Li family. Li Zisheng did not rush out of the seclusion, but continued to meditate and cultivate, using the spiritual energy of the seclusion room to stabilize his cultivation. This is his first time coming to the seclusion room for cultivation, and his cultivation here is more than 3 times faster than his usual. There are only 8 isolation rooms halfway up the Yunling Peak, usually as rewards for cultivators who have made significant contributions to their families. In addition, only cultivators who are a key focus of the family's cultivation have a chance to come here for seclusion cultivation when they break through. The spiritual energy in the closed room is equivalent to the second-level lower-level spiritual pulse, which is the spiritual energy required for the cultivation of foundation-building cultivators. 1 month later. The door to the closed room opened, and Li Zisheng walked out. The crane from the Li family flew by, and the sunlight radiated on him. With his eyes closed, he stood halfway up the mountain enjoying himself. After a while, I opened my eyes and looked at the natural scenery at the foot of the mountain, feeling refreshed and excited to break through the realm. I flew towards the Tian Foam where the Sutra Pavilion was located, wielding my sword. The Sutra Pavilion is an important place of the Li family, and it is usually guarded by an elder of the family. Only when you are close to breaking through the realm, will you choose the cultivation method at the Sutra Pavilion. Grandpa Jiu, Zisheng has just broken through the 6th level of Qi cultivation and has come to collect the techniques and formulas for the later stage of Qi cultivation. Li Zisheng bowed forward and respectfully addressed the elder guardian of the Sutra Pavilion, Li Zai. Li Zai ranked 9th in the Li family's generation, but failed to break through the foundation building period and became one of the rare 10-level cultivators in the cultivation world. When a cultivator reaches the peak of the 9th level of Qi cultivation, they can break through the foundation building period. Once the foundation building fails, those who are unlucky will become demonic and die. Some will go back in cultivation to become the 8th level of Qi cultivation, while others will move forward to become the 10th level of Qi cultivation, possessing the abilities of some foundation building cultivators. Li Zai felt that he had wasted one of his family's foundation building pills. Although he had become a cultivator with 10 levels of Qi cultivation, he had not yet reached the foundation building period. Therefore, he invited him to come and take a look at the Guardian family's scripture pavilion, wholeheartedly studying the martial arts in the family's scripture pavilion. For every family cultivator who came to the scripture pavilion to collect the martial arts, he would give them the best advice based on their situation. The entire Li family, who knows the most about the techniques of the Sutra Pavilion, is not the highest-ranking clan leader or other foundation-building cultivators in the family, it can only be Li Zai. It's self-cultivation. You broke through the 6th level of Qi cultivation so quickly to receive the later stage of Qi cultivation techniques. Although cultivators compete with heaven for longevity, their foundation needs to be solid. You're good, this foundation is quite solid. This time you go to the 2nd level as a reward, you can receive an additional spell this time. I thought Li Zisheng broke through too quickly, but when he saw that his foundation was solid, he nodded in satisfaction and gave Li Zisheng a reward for receiving an additional spell. When a family receives martial arts and spells, besides reaching your own cultivation level, they will provide you with the necessary martial arts and spells for cultivation. Everything else requires you to exchange it for family contribution points. Li Zai can directly give a spell, and Li Zisheng can save some family contribution points. Thank you Grandpa Jiu. Upon hearing that he could obtain an additional spell, Li Zisheng was immediately overjoyed. The Sutra Pavilion is divided into 4 levels. The 1st and 2nd levels are the cultivation techniques during the Qi cultivation period, and because there are many techniques during the Qi cultivation period, they are divided into 2 levels. The 3rd layer is the cultivation method during the foundation period, and the 4th layer is the cultivation method during the golden elixir period. The 4th layer has a formation, and without the permission of the clan leader, even the founder, Li Zai, cannot enter. This is Li Zisheng's 2nd time coming to the Sutra Pavilion, because the first time he received the Chaoyang sword technique, this time there is no doubt that he chose the Chaoyang sword technique first. Li Zisheng couldn't wait to look at the Chaoyang sword technique, which had many annotations and a feeling of sudden enlightenment. I wanted to give it a try, but found it unsuitable here. I thought I could choose 2 more spells, plus one promised by Li Zai. I put away the Chaoyang sword technique and headed towards the spell area. There are more spells than martial arts, so I quickly chose a convergence technique and a gust technique. After searching for half a day without finding a suitable one, I suddenly found a spell called soul-splitting technique in a corner. This spell is very thin, only a few pages long, with only 10 words on the first page. Those who are not powerful souls cannot cultivate. With an attitude of trying, pick up this spell and leave. The soul-splitting technique is a powerful spell introduced in this book, but no one in the family has successfully practiced it, and after practicing, they have become demonic. You should switch to another spell. Li Zai looked at Li Zisheng's choice and discovered the soul-splitting technique, so he advised. Grandpa 9, I want to give it a try. Why don't you listen? I usually see you as quite steady, but it's also a child's nature. Grandpa Jiu, I have carefully considered it, and I just wanted to take a look and learn from it. There are many explanations inside that are worth learning from. Grandpa Jiu, you must have read them and know, right? Don't worry, I know what I'm doing, and when you'll see me do something I'm not sure about. Faced with Li Zai's anger, Li Zisheng's heart warmed and he explained it well to Li Zai. That's true. It's possible to draw inspiration from it. You are the 3rd cultivator in your generation to break through the 6th level of Qi cultivation, and there is hope for building a foundation in the future. Don't take a detour. Li Zai looked at Li Zisheng's explanation and expression, not seeming to be fake. After finishing speaking, he kept staring at Li Zisheng, hoping to find out the problem. Grandpa Jiu, I'll leave first. I'll take it back and become more proficient. I'll come back and return it next time. Li Zisheng, staring at Li Zai, quickly picked up his martial arts sword and flew away. Remember to come and return it a month later. In a short while, Li Zizi arrived at a small peak, where there was a cave at the top. This was Li Zizi's cave, and this small peak did not have a spiritual pulse. The spiritual energy relied on the family's large array, relying on the spiritual energy emitted by the Yunling Peak's spiritual pulse for cultivation. This is also the benefit of practicing in the clan area. If there is no spiritual pulse outside, one can only rely on spiritual stones for cultivation. After entering the cave, Li Zizi began to familiarize himself with the martial arts he had just received. The first one to open is the Chaoyang sword technique. Chaoyang sword technique is a residual sword technique that belongs to the integrated cultivation of martial arts, with only the cultivation of Qi and the 3 types of sword moves. I used to practice this technique before, and with the annotations on it, I quickly understood and remembered it. 3 Swordsmanship. Rising sun in the east, scorching sun like fire, shining brightly. Li Zisheng has already met the rising sun. He is well aware of the power of this rising sun and looks forward to the scorching and bright sun. The scorching sun can still be understood. There are many things that I don't understand when the sun is shining brightly, so I'm not in a hurry. Next, open the breath refining technique and the wind refining technique. Breath refining technique cultivates one's own breath. The deeper one understands breath refining technique, the more hidden cultivation levels there are. At the highest, there are only 3 levels of Qi refining cultivation, making it an excellent spell for pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. Breeze technique increases speed, depending on your perception of the wind. The stronger your perception, the faster your speed will be. Both of these spells are easy to learn but difficult to master. Li Zisheng practiced outside the cave for several hours, and soon he was able to hide 10% of his cultivation, flying around the cave and increasing his speed significantly. Due to Li Zisheng's soul strength being twice that of ordinary people, he is much stronger in memorizing and understanding martial arts, and his cultivation speed is also faster than others. Li Zisheng has great expectations for the soul-splitting technique, and he has come to this world of cultivating immortals and competing with heaven for longevity. I have no other strengths, I am not a heavenly spirit root cultivator, nor was I born into a powerful Yuanying or divine transformation family. The strength of the soul over others is his advantage. And soul-splitting technique is a spell that can help him expand his advantage. How could Li Zisheng miss it? Finally, the soul-splitting technique was opened. After breaking through the qi cultivation period, the soul will become spiritual consciousness. Soul-splitting technique can split one's own spiritual consciousness, and after splitting, it will gradually grow to the strength before splitting. Then, it will merge together, doubling the spiritual consciousness. The process of division is extremely painful, lasting for a month. Once uncontrollable, spiritual consciousness will lose control, attack each other, and eventually become a fool. Soul splitting requires extremely high standards for the original soul. If the original soul is not high enough, it cannot even split spiritual consciousness. Some more powerful spiritual cultivators split spiritual consciousness, but ultimately cannot merge, and they become possessed by demons and become fools. Some people take pills to increase their spiritual awareness and then practice, but still cannot succeed. Only the stronger the primitive soul, the easier it is to split, merge, and succeed. It seems that soul-splitting technique is a spell tailored for personal use. If I don't even have the courage to miss out on such opportunities, why should I compete for life with others? Why should I compete for longevity with heaven? Why should I soar to the upper realm to obtain immortality? Li Zisheng hesitated and then stared at soul-splitting technique with a determined gaze, speaking to himself firmly. Chapter 2. Li Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Southern Barbarians, the Li family of Yunling Peak. The 9 peaks of Yunling are. The main peak is Yunling Peak, the side peak is Tiandi Rensan Peak, and the outer peak is Wuxing Peak. Clan leader Li Dehui unleashed extraordinary talents and forcefully lifted the 5 elements peak, setting up a second-level top-notch 3 talents and 5 elements formation for the family. The 3 talents were in charge of killing, while the 5 elements were in charge of defense. Together with Yunling Peak, they formed the 9 Palace Spirit Gathering formation. Yunling Peak is a second-level superior spiritual vein, and the family's foundation building cultivators all built caves on Yunling Peak. Tianfeng is the Sutra Pavilion, Difeng is the Medicine Garden, Renfeng is the Shuwu Hall, and Jinmu Shuehua Tu Wuxing Peak is the cave where the foundation seeds are built. The family holds a clan competition every 10 years, and the top 5 are the foundation building cultivators that the family fully cultivates, each guarding a peak. Enjoy the cultivation resources of the entire peak and plant your own spiritual medicine. The ancestor of the Li family, Li Gangyuan, came from the Luyun sect of the Golden Core sect. He was originally a cultivator who built the foundation of the 2 spirit roots and was ambushed by the Baiwa sect when he went out. He suffered serious injuries and cut off the possibility of Jidun. The Baiwa gate compensated the Luyun sect for some losses, and the Luyun sect did not engage in war with the Baiwa gate because of a foundation-building cultivator who had lost the pill. Feeling disheartened, Li Gangyuan arrived at Yunling Peak with the compensation given by Luyun sect and established the Li family in Yunling Peak. During the reign of Li Gangyuan, the Li family was the dominant cultivator family in the surrounding area, with one sect building 10 foundations at its peak. The following generations were poorly managed and continuously weakened, almost unable to maintain Yunling Peak. Until the birth of Li Dehui, with the dual spiritual roots of soil and water, the family saw hope and fully tilted its resources towards Li Dehui. Li Dehui did not disappoint the clan members, and the only foundation-building cultivator in the previous generation persisted until Li Dehui built the foundation. Li Dehui walked on thin ice, diligently developing his family, changing the current situation of the family, and cultivating 4 foundation-building cultivators. The rise of the Li family has caused unease among several immortal cultivation forces in the surrounding area. With the alliance of the Yang family and other forces, a large number of Qi cultivation cultivators have been lost, and the 2 generations of Dazai have suffered heavy losses, as well as a foundation-building cultivator from the Dazai generation. Li Dehui turned the tide and killed the leader of the Yang family during the middle period of building the foundation. With his later cultivation, he continued to kill the 2 leaders of the Shuangxiong gang. In that battle, Li Dehui was like a god of killing, fighting 3 foundation-building cultivators in a single day, including one in the later stages of foundation building, and thus becoming famous in one battle. The rise of the Li family was announced to the surrounding families, and then Li Dehui led the Li family to destroy the Shuangxiong gang, expanding the family's sphere of influence and becoming a cultivator family that could compete with the Yang family. To strengthen the family's defense, Li Dehui relocated a portion of the Shuangxiong sect's spiritual veins, selected 5 peaks around Yunling Peak, and arranged the 3 talents and 5 elements formation to strengthen the family's defense of the clan's territory. Afterwards, the Li family developed steadily under the leadership of Li Dehui. At present, there are 6 foundation-building cultivators, and Li Dehui is a late-stage cultivator in the foundation-building period. There are over 200 Qi training cultivators, and there are nearly 1 million Li family members. 1 month later, Li Zisheng became familiar with the Chaoyang sword technique, and the rising sun in the east had already achieved great success. Now, using the rising sun in the east is much more powerful than before. The scorching sun, like fire, has comprehended a bit, but the realm is not enough. There hasn't been much improvement in the technique of gathering breath, and now only 1 layer of cultivation can be hidden. The speed of the technique of rapid wind is faster than before. The soul-splitting technique takes a month to merge, and Li Zisheng dare not be careless, but his understanding of the soul-splitting technique has never stopped. After returning the martial arts, Li Zisheng needs to go to Renfeng's Shuwu Hall to collect tasks, and this cave will not return for the time being. Li Zisheng needs to take inventory of his belongings and pack his luggage. A first-class flying sword, a bottle of Qi gathering pill, a first-class fiery talisman, 3 first-class earth escape talismans, a bottle of first-class purple spark seeds, 5 mature and 7 semi-mature purple sparks, 53 inferior spirit stones, and a storage bag are all the assets of Li Zisheng. Mature purple spark is the main medicine for refining the Qi gathering pill. 2 mature lower-grade spirit stones, and 1 semi-mature lower-grade spirit stone, add a total of 70 spirit stones. Looking at this pitiful value, Li Zisheng shook his head helplessly and took this value to venture into the world. Li Zisheng first flew with his sword, accompanied by the technique of rapid wind, and soon arrived at the scripture storage pavilion of Tianfeng. "Grandpa Jiao, I'm coming to see you again," he said to Li Zai with a smile, handing over the martial arts technique he wanted to return. "You're quite sensible and haven't practiced soul-splitting technique. Before you go out, I'll give you a suggestion. Cultivating immortals is about resources, competing for destiny. You should learn one of the 100 arts of cultivation. This time, choosing a garrison task will be boring time and lack external spiritual energy, making it unsuitable for cultivation. It's a good time for you to master a skill." Li Zai was quite happy to see that Li Zio haven't practiced soul-splitting technique, and he gave high expectations to Li Zio. "Grandpa Jiao, which one do you think I am suitable for mastering?" Li Zisheng humbly asked Li Zai for advice. Although there are hundreds of skills in cultivation, the commonly used ones are generally the 4 skills, Dan, Qi, Formation, and Fu. We are a body-refining family with many refining tools. The clan leader is an array master, and the 13th uncle is a Fu seal master. Refining is the weakness of the family. Choosing a refining tool is the most experienced and fastest growing in the family. According to the family's needs, you can choose alchemy. Your spiritual root attribute is also suitable for alchemy. Li Zai briefly introduced the family's situation, and his heart also leaned towards Li Zisheng's choice of alchemy. "Then I'll choose alchemy. I also have the firewood spirit root myself. Li Zisheng is the fire with gold 3 spirit root, while metal generates water, which is relatively inferior to the 3 spirit root. To possess the qualifications to cultivate immortality in the world of cultivation, one must at least have a spiritual root. Only those with spiritual roots can comprehend the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and absorb it to nourish themselves. Spirit roots are generally divided into heavenly spirit roots, alien spirit roots, double spirit roots, pseudo-spirit roots, and miscellaneous spirit roots. The miscellaneous spirit root is the worst of the 5 spirit roots, just qualified for cultivation, but breaking through the foundation period is also extremely difficult. Pseudo-spiritual roots are 3 spiritual roots and 4 spiritual roots, which are better than mixed spiritual roots. Double spiritual roots are 2 spiritual roots, while different spiritual roots are single attribute thunder, ice, and wind. Heavenly spiritual roots are a single 5-element spiritual root. The fewer spiritual roots there are, the more absorbed spiritual energy is given to one type of spiritual root, and the faster the cultivation speed. The more spiritual roots there are, the more spiritual energy is consumed, and the slower the cultivation speed. Among mortals, there is 1 out of 1,000 who possesses spiritual roots. Pseudo-spiritual roots are 1 out of 1,000, and double spiritual roots are 1 out of 1,000,000. There is currently no mention of a heavenly spirit root cultivator in the southern barbarian cultivation world. Only the Grand Elder of Luyun sect is the wind spirit root. Since you have chosen alchemy, the alchemy tool I learned from your 9th grandfather does not have an alchemy furnace, but I can provide you with a preliminary solution to alchemy, which includes several alchemy formulas. Li Zai was still pleased that Li Zisheng chose alchemy instead of refining tools. Thank you, Grandpa 9. Li Zisheng was immediately overjoyed, which had been a great help to him. Throughout, Li Zai has given him a lot of help and care. Let's go, the future of the family will depend on you, the younger generation, to support it. Li Zai's thoughts were all about the future of the family and the growth of the younger generation. Farewell to Li Zai. Li Zisheng arrived at the Shuwu Hall in Renfeng. Compared to the Sutra Pavilion, the Shuwu Hall has more people here, either to take on tasks or to hand them over. Lao Qi, you have also broken through the 6th level of Qi cultivation. Your cultivation speed is good. What skills can you teach second brother? A burly figure, carrying a pair of sledgehammers on both sides of his shoulders, walked towards Li Zisheng. Li Ziqiang, ranked 2nd in his generation, has 3 spiritual roots. He is rugged, enthusiastic, and has a good talent for refining weapons. He has a pair of sledgehammers and few opponents in his class. Second brother, please don't tease me anymore. You have already practiced Qi level 7, and I have just broken through. You should teach me. Li Zisheng didn't expect to meet Li Ziqiang here, feeling a bit excited. You are just like the 5th brother, both geniuses in cultivation. I am just older than you, and you will soon surpass me. However, when it comes to taking on tasks, I can tell you more. After taking on the task, go to the nearest market to buy a spirit gathering array and buy more spiritual rice seeds. The spiritual energy outside is not as good as that of Yunling Peak. The spirit gathering array, combined with practical spiritual rice, can compensate for the loss of spiritual energy. Li Ziqiang's 5th younger brother is Li Zixian, ranked 5th in his generation and the first genius in his generation. Although he is younger than Li Ziqiang, he is the first self-generation cultivator to break through the 6 levels of Qi cultivation. Thank you for reminding me, but I dare not compare myself with Brother Wu. Only Brother Air has the qualifications to compete with Brother Wu. I am far behind. Li Zisheng replied humbly. You kid, go take the task. I have something else to do, let's go first. After speaking, he picked up his left shoulder sledgehammer, got bigger, jumped onto it directly, and flew away. Li Zisheng arrived at the interior of the Shuwu Hall, which was very large. The Shuwu Hall only had 1 floor, with a length, width, and height of about 50 meters. The main gate could accommodate about 10 people in parallel. Across from the Shouwu Hall are task takers, and on the left and right sides are tasks posted by elders, peak masters, and other high-level individuals, which can earn family contribution points. Li Zisheng, the 7th generation of my generation, has come to take on tasks. If there are any tasks that I can take on, please ask the elder for guidance. Li Zisheng bowed respectfully. I am Li Ziyuan, ranked 13th. You can call me Grandpa 13. This is your first time taking on missions, which are relatively simple. They are all stationed outside, taking care of local spiritual plants, maintaining local security, and responsible for testing the spiritual roots of local people who are over 6 years old for a period of 5 years. These are some places that need to be stationed, you can choose. Li Ziyuan gave a detailed introduction. 13th Grandpa, it's my first time taking on a task and I'm not very familiar with the external situation. Please give me some guidance. Li Zisheng didn't make his own choice first, so he bowed again to ask Li Mingji for advice. Not bad, quite steady. Zisheng, you are the 3rd self-generation to take on tasks, which can be considered one of the more advanced in your generation, mainly focusing on cultivation. In these places, Yunwu Mountain has a first-level intermediate spiritual vein, with several spiritual veins being the highest, and there is about 8 acres of spiritual field. There is 1 acre of spiritual field that you can control yourself. Li Mingming was quite satisfied with Li Zisheng's humble inquiry and recommended Yunwu Mountain, which is most suitable for cultivation, to him. Thank you, Grandpa 13. Let's choose Yunwu Mountain since we were born. Is there anything you need to pay attention to in Yunwu Mountain? Good question. To the left of Yunwu Mountain is a continuous mountain range. There are some wild beasts in that area who do not know how to cultivate or have no cultivation. Just keep an eye on that side to prevent them from damaging the spiritual plants in the spiritual field. Li Mingshi was very satisfied with Li Zisheng, with clear thinking and humbly seeking advice. Thank you, Grandpa 13. Li Zisheng took the task and arrived at the edge of Renfeng. Looking at the familiar Yunling Peak, he thought that he was about to leave for 5 years, feeling a bit reluctant. Flying with a sword, circling around the entire Yunling Peak, watching the people who manage the spiritual field, the green plants around, the cranes in the sky, and the surrounding clouds and mist shuttled back and forth between them at a slow speed. After completing the lap, I stayed in the air for a moment and flew straight out of Yunling Peak towards Yunwu Mountain. Chapter 3. Ambush. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Ambush. Qingfeng Fengshe, the closest fengshe to Yunwu Mountain, is built on Qingfeng Mountain and has a first-class spiritual vein. This is a small fengshe jointly developed by the Li and Du families. The Li and Du families both have some spiritual lands here. The members of the cultivation family are all arranged around the spiritual lands for survival. In order to facilitate scattered cultivation and local economic transactions and circulation, they built this market. The Li and Du families did not privately own the spiritual energy of the spiritual pulse, but instead arranged a large gathering spiritual formation for everyone in the entire neighborhood to use, so there are also many scattered cultivators here. Li Zisheng restrained his cultivation by 1 level, and from outside he only had 5 levels of qi cultivation. When he arrived at Qingfengfeng City, he followed Li Ziqiang's advice and prepared to buy something for Yunwu Mountain. Li Zisheng first went to the 2 large stores of the Li and Du families to understand the prices. He found that he couldn't afford it with his own value, so he sold purple spark in the Li store and received 17 inferior spirit stones. Then he went to the street stall to see if he had what he wanted. There are many street vendors in the western district. You only need to hand in a piece of inferior spiritual stone to set up a stall for a whole day. With this market spiritual energy alone, you don't buy anything, and practicing for a whole day is also good. That's why even casual cultivators come here to set up stalls. Li Zisheng mainly wanted to buy some Lingmi seeds and formations. After circling around, he roughly understood the situation and chose a company to go and ask. A tattered black robe, wearing a bamboo hat, sitting cross-legged, with a first-class knife on his legs. The front of the hat was low, making it difficult to see any expression. Next to it is written, "Selling formation, the lowest in the entire neighborhood." "What formations do you have here? Can you introduce them?" Li Zisheng asked forward. "Trapped formation, killing formation, illusion formation, gathering spirit, defense formation, everything is available. What type of formation do you want to buy, Taoist friend?" The black-clothed man didn't look up much, and a hoarse voice came in. "I want to buy a first-level intermediate-level spirit-gathering array. How many spirit stones are there?" The first-level medium-level spirit-gathering array has 20 inferior spirit stones, and the first-level medium-level mysterious spirit array has 2 characteristics of spirit gathering and hallucination. There are 30 inferior spirit stones, and the first-level medium-level Liangyi spirit gathering array has 2 attributes of spirit gathering and attack, with 40 inferior spirit stones. In the stores of Li and Du, there are generally 20 more spirit stones at the same stage, and those with attacks are even more expensive. Your price is quite reasonable, but I'm afraid your formation quality is not good and the effect is not up to standard. I don't think you look like a formation mage either. I am not a formation mage, my sister is a formation mage. The formation created by my sister is the best one in the same level. I come here every 10 days to set up a stall, and everyone here knows that you can inquire about it. If there is a quality issue, you can exchange it at any time." The tone of the person in black was slightly angry, and he was somewhat dissatisfied with Li Zisheng's questioning of his sister's formation. It seems that he is a spoiled sister-brother. "Is there an automatic attack killing array?" "A relatively powerful one is fine, even a single one. I need to practice a spell in seclusion and not be disturbed." Li Zisheng no longer questioned, but he wanted to practice soul-splitting technique. Don't disturb, he needed a relatively strong killing array. The killing array is relatively difficult to refine. Here is a first-level intermediate-level 3-talented killing array with a divine soul attack effect, which requires 70 spirit stones. Why is this so expensive? Li Zisheng was frightened, and his total value was only 70 spirit stones. This formation is refined according to the first-level top grade, and there was a slight mistake in the middle, becoming the first-level mid-grade with power approaching the first-level top grade. The rare divine soul attack will make the person breaking through the formation pause briefly. When combined with the killing formation, it is comparable to the first-level top grade formation. The first-level top grade formation also requires at least 200 lower-level spirit stones. The person in black explained in detail, and this formation is indeed good. "Alright, I'll buy your 3-talent formation, and you can also give me a bag of spiritual rice seeds as a gift." Li Zisheng was moved, but neither the gathering spirit formation nor the spiritual rice were available, so he wanted to give him some spiritual rice seeds as a gift. "No problem. This spirit rice seed is yellow tooth rice, a first-grade medium-grade spirit rice, which is not bad." The person in black still did not have any joy in making a business, so he introduced this yellow tooth rice. I paid 70 yuan for the inferior spirit stone, held the array plate of the Sankai killing formation and a bag of yellow rice, shook my head, and secretly felt that this spirit stone was not enough. But being able to buy what I want is still quite enjoyable. After spending all the spirit stones on Li Zisheng's body, he had no intention of staying in Qingfengfang City and flying towards Yunwu Mountain. When Li Zisheng flew into a forest, the surrounding trees were lush and there was no sound of birds, a bit too quiet. Li Zisheng slowed down and kept an eye out for the surroundings. Suddenly, a spiritual arrow attacked Li Zisheng. Fortunately, Li Zisheng's spiritual awareness was much stronger than that of ordinary people, and he barely avoided the surprise attack. However, he failed to stabilize the flying sword, lost his balance, and fell into the forest. Although he is a cultivator, the fall was quite painful, just remembered. 5 cultivators with 4 levels of Qi cultivation appeared, forming a 5-element formation. They were trapped in the formation, and all 5 cultivators rushed forward at the same time. Fortunately, they were all casual cultivators who were not very proficient in formations and did not cooperate well. After circling around for a few moves, Zisheng found an opportunity to use the wind technique to kill each of the 5 people one by one. At this level, are you still robbing families and houses? Zisheng put away his Gung Jin sword and shook his head, collecting storage bags from the 5 of them. Just as he was preparing to check the contents of the storage bag, 2 people, one in front and one behind, attacked again with their swords and knives. Zisheng hastily picked up his flying sword, blocked the attack, and rolled with the help of the rapid wind technique to break free from the pincer attack. Without waiting for Zisheng to slow down, the 2 of them attacked again. Zisheng demonstrated his cultivation of 6 levels of Qi cultivation, but there were also parries. As he slowly regained his strength, a move called the Rising Sun directly repelled the 2's attack. 2 Taoist friends, Zisheng from the Li family at Xianling Peak, accidentally broke into their cultivation ground. Please forgive me. During a brief attack, Zisheng realized that both of them were cultivators who practiced Qi at the 6th level, and they should be scattered cultivators who robbed families and houses. He reported the reputation of the Li family to see if he could intimidate them. It's a member of the Li family, who has offended many people. I apologize for admitting the wrong person, and I beg Li Dao Yu to forgive me. One of them was shocked and panicked, coming over to apologize to Zisheng. The saying goes, no fight, no acquaintance. The 2 Taoist friends used to attack each other for their own gain. Today, I have learned a lesson. I don't know the names of the 2 Taoist friends. Zisheng put away his Gung Jin sword and planned to make some friends. The person apologizing suddenly stabbed with a sword, and Zisheng had to use the Earth Escape Talisman to dodge the attack. When he first appeared, the Blade Man attacked again, forcing Zisheng to use the Earth Escape Talisman again. This time, when Zisheng appeared, he aimed a move at the sword wielder, the Rising Sun. The sword wielder caught the Rising Sun with the cost of 1 arm, entangled Zisheng, and waited for the sword wielder to come. A combination of swords and knives. The 2 of them shouted at the same time and used a joint move, which was their strongest move. Zisheng was only hit with a parry and had no backhand ability. He forcefully took a sword and used the Unearthed Escape Talisman. The 2 of them stubbornly attacked Zisheng again. Zisheng threw them a first-class fiery talisman, causing the swordsman to fail to bear it and die, resulting in the swordsman being seriously injured and falling to the ground. Li Dao Yu, spare your life. I, Chen Ming, belong to the Green Forest Village. We had no choice but to follow the instructions of our village leader and come to rob the Li family cultivator. Chen Ming, dragging his seriously injured body, moved back and quickly begged for mercy, explaining in a weak tone. Green Forest Village. Why did Green Forest Village rob and kill our Li family cultivators? Does our Li family have any grudges against Green Forest Village? Zisheng was a bit puzzled and asked. Chen Ming suddenly vomited blood and fell to the ground, as if unconscious. Zisheng quickly moved forward to save Chen Ming and asked for the reason. Speaking of which, it was too late. At that moment, a top-notch ice-piercing talisman emanated from Chen Ming and flew towards Zisheng. At this moment, Zisheng was completely unprepared and had no time to dodge. Bang! Zisheng had a frightened expression on his face, his legs weak, and he sat on the ground for the rest of his life. Watching the cultivator in front of me already pierced his forehead with a needle, he fell to the ground and couldn't get up. Looking at this gourd falling from the sky, with its yellow skin and a large and small 8-character gourd below and above, it can actually block the powerful first-order top-grade ice-piercing talisman. This is at least a first-order top-grade magical tool. The first mistake was to kill 5 people without defense, leading to another surprise attack. Little did they know how they were shot down. which was beyond the abilities of a few Qi cultivation level 4 cultivators. The second mistake, 2 sneak attacks and ambushes. Can the Li family intimidate these fugitives? Once again being ambushed. The third mistake is that even a lion fighting a rabbit requires full effort. Although resistance has already been lost, how can one easily relax their guard before dying? The cultivation world is full of deceit and danger, competing with heaven for life and people for life. Without a vigilant heart at all times, how can one gain the power to survive in this cultivation world? Just because you are a cultivator of the Li family, you can intimidate a few people. Xiao Zhu, you still lack a lot of exercise, but from the perspective of dealing with difficulties temporarily, you are still far superior to ordinary people. A thick, teaching voice came from above. Li Zisheng was convinced by this statement. Although he has lived for 2 generations, he still underestimated the cruelty of the cultivation world. He fought and killed by all means for the sake of resources and survival. It seems that he still needs to be more vigilant in the future. Thank you very much for your guidance, Master Li Zisheng of the Li family. I am not your young master, have you mistaken me? Please appear and let me thank you in front of you. Li Zisheng was very grateful in his heart. This person not only saved his life, but also helped him analyze and teach him. He only looked up in his voice and did not see anyone. Suddenly, a middle-aged cultivator in a black robe flew down from a tree, pinched the magic formula, put away the small needle in Chen Ming's head, opened the lid of the gourd, and looked up to drink a sip of spiritual wine. Are you Uncle Chen? Li Zisheng saw the person in front of him and remembered the person in front of him. Uncle Chen often came to the family to secretly look at him and ask tentatively. Young master has a good memory. I thought you couldn't remember. Uncle Chen laughed heartily as he saw Li Zisheng recognize him. Uncle Chen, where have you been all these years? Why haven't you come to see me, and my father and mother? Are they really dead? Li Zisheng was still excited at the beginning, and as he remembered the past, he asked Uncle Chen a bit sadly. Li Zisheng was an orphan in his lifetime, growing up in the warmth of a big family. His parents were the ones who gave birth to him and gave him his life. Although he was not around, he arranged for Uncle Chen to protect him. How could he not feel his parents caring for him? He really hoped to find his own parents, love them that he had not received in the previous life, and pursue them in this life, even if it is difficult. Hey, I can't explain my master's situation clearly for a while. In short, my master is not that easy to die. You haven't built the foundation yet. After you build it, I'll tell you about my master's situation. It's no use telling you now. Let's deal with what needs to be dealt with first. Uncle Chen sighed slightly. What should we handle? Li Zisheng asked in confusion. How could the ambush of the young master in Green Forest Village be so easy? Take care of what's on them, Uncle Chen will take you to destroy Green Forest Village. Uncle Chen looked at Li Zisheng, looked at several corpses in the distance, and said arrogantly, destroy Green Forest Village. Chapter 4. Revenge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Revenge. Uncle Chen, a subordinate of Li Wujin. Li Wujin, the father of Li Zisheng. Li Wujin is another dual spiritual root cultivator in the Li family, following the clan leader. He is also a gold and water dual spiritual root, with gold generating water, which is an excellent dual spiritual root and most suitable for practicing water attribute techniques. The Li family claims to be the 3 spiritual roots of gold, water, and fire, and secretly cultivates Li Wujin. Li Wujin broke through the foundation building at the age of only 25 and has been hiding his cultivation. Later, he was discovered and pursued outside for training, but his life and death are unknown. When Uncle Chen was 12 years old, his whole family was killed. It was Li Wujin who saved him and found him carrying the 3 spiritual roots of gold, water, and earth. Seeing that he had nowhere else to go, just keep him by his side and teach him how to cultivate, equivalent to his younger brother. For Uncle Chen, kindness is reborn together. Uncle Chen has always admired Li Wujin, but he considers himself a servant. After Li Zisheng was born, he even changed his name to Chen Baosheng. Chen Shu and Li Zisheng went through 7 twists and turns, crossed multiple hills, and solved several sentries along the way. They quietly arrived at a small hill in the Green Forest village, waiting for the opportunity. Although it was a copycat, it also overturned Li Zisheng's understanding of the bandits in the copycat. The key outpost along the way would have been discovered long ago if it weren't for Chen Shuxiu's high reputation. This is not a copycat bandit, it is clearly a faction. Li Zisheng is already calculating how to persuade Uncle Chen to give up destroying the Green Forest fortress. But just as Li Zisheng was planning to retreat, a person appeared behind him. When he realized he was about to take action, he was pressed down by Uncle Chen. "Brother Chen, why do you want me to go in and have a few drinks without telling the village leader?" As the person asked, Li Zisheng realized that Uncle Chen had just sent a message to this person, asking him to come over. Li Zisheng, who came here, couldn't see his cultivation clearly. At least he was a cultivator in the later stage of qi cultivation. He was dressed in messy clothes, but he was white and clean, with a handsome face. On Earth, he had a standard face for eating soft rice, and his identity as a bandit was not very compatible. "Zhang Quan, I came this time to destroy the Green Forest village. I came to ask you to help me." Uncle Chen said directly to him, without any hesitation, that Zhang Quan was a member of the Green Forest village and did not feel it was inappropriate. Li Zisheng was stunned and always prepared to take action against this person. What he didn't expect was Zhang Quan's reply. "Chen Gu, you also understand my situation, so I won't say anything more. You can tell me what to do." Zhang Quan's response to Uncle Chen was not perfunctory, nor did he ask why Uncle Chen wanted to destroy the Green Forest fortress. He agreed directly. "This is a spirit wine with the addition of drunken spirit powder. After adding spirit wine, it will make the spirit wine fragrant and delicious. The spirit wine has a mellow and delicious taste, and is not harmful to cultivators. However, it will not have any cultivation for 3 hours, and may not even be as good as Immortal," said Uncle Chen, taking out a gourd, which was the gourd he used to resist the ice stab spell. "Okay, Chen Gu, wait for my message. I will notify you tonight." Zhang Quan didn't hesitate. "Well, I'll wait for you to notify me, you notify me, and I'll start cleaning up the people around." After Chen Shu and Zhang Quan combined, Zhang Quan bowed to Chen Shu and Li Zisheng and left. "Uncle Chen, why did he help us? They also have a share in this Green Forest village. How could you trust him so much?" Li Zisheng couldn't help but ask after Zhang Quan left. "Firstly, I have saved his life, and he and I are in dire straits. Secondly, because he also has a grudge against the 2 leaders of the Green Forest village. If it were only for the first reason, I wouldn't believe it so much, but with the second reason added, his goal is aligned with ours. Young master, if you venture into the cultivation world in the future, even if you have saved someone, don't believe it absolutely. The cultivation world is too cruel. In the face of interests, many things seem too insignificant." Uncle Chen used Zhang Quan's case to impart Li Zisheng with experience in walking in the cultivation world. Uncle Chen and Li Zisheng talked a lot together, including his past with Li Wujin, his experiences in the past few years, and some of his knowledge and experience in the cultivation world. In addition to the incident with Li Wujin, Li Zisheng was grateful for Uncle Chen's unreserved disclosure and generous gift. He was also happy that his father had such a brother and thought that he must help Uncle Chen build a foundation in the future. Uncle Chen, a cultivator with 3 spiritual roots, started practicing at the age of 12, a bit later than ordinary people, and started slowly. Fortunately, with the help of Li Wujin and his stable personality, he has a good network in the scattered cultivation world, and his life is relatively good. He has been practicing until the current 9th level of qi cultivation, but has not built a foundation pill or foundation. Because I couldn't enter the Li family's territory, I waited around the Li family for Li Zisheng's appearance until I found him in King Fengfang City and followed him. After a while, I received a message from Zhang Quan, and Li Zisheng and Uncle Chen began to take action, saying that they were acting together. Li Zisheng didn't have much means, and Uncle Chen had been taking action. Uncle Chen has a soul-devouring needle, which is refined from the needle of the soul-devouring Bee King. It is a top-level magical tool. As long as it hits the opponent's head, if there is no time to react, it will absorb the spiritual consciousness of the cultivator and lead to direct death. It is one of Uncle Chen's common methods. In less than an hour, 40 or 50 cultivators had already been killed, except for a few mines. All of them had already been killed by Uncle Chen. Uncle Chen and Li Zisheng arrived at the main hall of the Green Forest village and watched as everyone lay on the ground, with only 2 village leaders still drinking. Seeing Uncle Chen and Li Zisheng come in. "Who are you and how did you get in?" Duan Yang, the leader of the Green Forest stronghold, was about to take action when he realized that he was powerless. In a panic, he took Uncle Chen's soul-eating needle and then killed the second leader, giving everyone except Zhang Quan a shot. Zhang Quan was given an antidote, and in order to gain their trust, he also drank spirit wine together. "Brother Chen, I know where the treasure trove in Green Forest village is. Let's go over there." Zhang Quan then took Li Zisheng and Uncle Chen over. I wandered around several branching intersections underground, turned off several automatic switches, and stole the treasure room. Li Zisheng took a medium-level soul-gathering formation, a first-level medium-level mist formation, a first-level top-grade golden light sword, and 100 lower-level spirit stones. The most valuable item in this treasure trove is undoubtedly the spirit wine recipe, which records the brewing methods of 3 first-grade intermediate spirit wines, 2 first-grade superior spirit wines, and 1 second-grade inferior spirit wine. Just this spiritual wine recipe is in the first solution of alchemy, and Li Zisheng, who was preparing to alchemy, started reading it. Uncle Chen also leaned over to take a look. He was already a lover of wine, and it was clear at a glance. There is no alchemist in the Green Forest village, so naturally no one pays attention to this initial alchemy solution. Even those who are not knowledgeable about alcohol cannot discover it. By chance, Li Zisheng and Uncle Chen discovered it. "Zhang Quan, what are your plans next?" Uncle Chen asked Zhang Quan. "Chen Gu, you all know about me. Now that the leader of the Green Forest village has died, I have avenged my younger brother. I don't have any good place to go next," Zhang Quan said with relief. "After all these years, my brother's hatred has been suppressing him for too long, and finally I have to avenge him. Zhang Quan, if you don't have a place to go, come and help me. I plan to open a distillery," Uncle Chen invited Zhang Quan. Uncle Chen showed kindness to save Zhang Quan's life and helped him avenge him. Their relationship is also good, and they are trustworthy people. "Chen Gu, you plan to open a distillery?" "Sure, Chen Gu invites you, and of course Zhang Quan is willing to follow." Zhang Quan replied. "Okay, Zhang Quan, you go to King Fengfang City and wait for me first. After I finish handling the matter, I will go over and meet you." After Zhang Quan left Green Forest Village, Uncle Chen wanted to tell Li Zisheng about the destruction of Green Forest Village. "Young master, regarding the matter of the Green Forest Village, Zhang Quan had asked me before, but I did not agree. This plan is a bit risky. After all, the 2 leaders of the Green Forest Village are both experts in practicing the 9th level of Qi. I can't tolerate it when I actually hit you this time, so I called Zhang Quan and implemented this plan that has been deduced several times, which is why it was so successful. It is very difficult to truly annihilate a small force. Uncle Chen is afraid that Li Zisheng thinks it is extremely simple to annihilate a force, and he is afraid that he will do something wrong in the future. He should give a reminder. "Uncle Chen, I understand now. Don't worry, I have a sense of propriety," Li Zisheng replied, grateful for Uncle Chen's dedication to Li Zisheng. "Young master, when you were in the treasure room, you said about the distillery. How did you plan this distillery?" Uncle Chen loved drinking and was also willing to open a distillery. At that time, Li Zisheng said that opening a distillery would be helpful for Uncle Chen to investigate his father, which aroused Uncle Chen's interest. Uncle Chen, I am not as experienced as you in walking in the world of cultivation, but in managing a distillery, you are definitely not as good as me. We have 6 types of spirit wine in our hands, and the first 2 are easy to make. You can sell the spirit wine to scattered cultivators and leave it on the first floor without taking it away. You can only drink it on the first floor. First-grade spirit wine can be served as a dish on the second floor. You can find some chefs who can make ingredients and cooperate with them to buy and sell first-grade spirit wine. There are many scattered cultivators who have been staying on the first floor, discussing with each other and passing on a lot of information. Perhaps we can gather information about our father. The second floor earns spiritual stones. With so many people on the first floor, the business on the second floor is indispensable. Li Zisheng passed on the Earth's business philosophy to Uncle Chen. It's okay to inquire about information, but even if we go in and out, the distillery also needs venue rent. Why do we have so many spirit stones to consume? Uncle Chen felt incredulous. Uncle Chen, although there is a venue fee, setting a higher price on the second floor will bring in profits. With just a few customers coming every day, we can break even. There are so many people on the first floor who would think this spirit wine is good and would like to try it. So many casual cultivators discussing here will turn the distillery into a gathering place for information, and there will also be many influential people coming to the second floor for consumption, earning only a little more. Don't we have the treasure of the entire green forest village now? Try treating them as expenses. I hope Uncle Chen can open a distillery in every market. Li Zisheng explained again and also raised expectations for Uncle Chen. Young master, since you are so confident, I will give it a try. The spirit stones you have successfully earned can be freely controlled by you. Uncle Chen, the spiritual stones earned can be used to expand the distillery. You can learn more about casual cultivation and intelligence from these news, investigate some people, gather them together, and use them for you. Otherwise, if the distillery grows, it cannot be defended. With enough strength, the distillery can naturally be defended. Collecting scattered cultivators for personal use can allow them to verify some information, such as spiritual medicine, hunting monsters, and so on, in order to gain more benefits. Li Zisheng hopes that the distillery can expand and obtain intelligence. Intelligence is the most valuable. Young master, you're really too smart. I'm going to open a distillery now. Uncle Chen was drawn by Li Zisheng's blueprint and was moved by it. Suddenly, he realized that the spirit stone was so easy to obtain and truly deserved to be the master's son. Li Zisheng thought about the knowledge on earth, which still has some impact in this world. He also hoped that the people around him would become better and better, and he would find his parents as soon as possible. Chapter 5. Yunwu Mountain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Yunwu Mountain. After Li Zisheng and Uncle Chen separated, they came to Yunwu Mountain. Looking at the Yunwu Mountain in front of him, Li Zisheng was grateful to Grandpa 13 for choosing such a good place for him. Yunwu Mountain is not high, only a few hundred meters. There are several hot springs on the mountaintop, not large, only 1 or 2 meters, but the temperature is not low. It keeps emitting gas, and the gas rises straight around Yunwu Mountain. The name Yunwu Mountain comes from this. The clouds and mist of Yunwu Mountain remain unchanged, and the sunlight continues to disperse them. By noon, when the sun is at its strongest, the entire Yunwu Mountain will be fully displayed in front of people. But I can't resist the hot springs constantly rising. When the sun is weak, the Yunwu Mountain will gradually be filled with clouds and mist again. There is not much vegetation in Yunwu Mountain, and only some spiritual plants are planted. The hot springs also carry a hint of spiritual energy, and all the hot springs will introduce spiritual fields to nourish spiritual plants. There is a cave on the mountaintop, which is the training ground for the station cultivators. Although it is a first-class medium-level spiritual pulse, the vast majority of spiritual energy is used to cultivate spiritual plants. Garrison cultivators also cannot obtain much spiritual energy cultivation. Uncle 11, I came to change my post with you at Yunwu Mountain. The one stationed at Yunwu Mountain is Li Wuhua, a cultivator of the Wu generation, ranked 11th, and is the 4 spirit roots cultivator. When I was at Yunling Peak before, Li Zisheng saw it. Then came a middle-aged man who was not tall and honest. Zisheng, you have practiced the 6th level of Qi so quickly. I remember you are a 3 spirit root cultivator, and you are only 18 years old this year. Li Wushan asked with envy on his face and a surprised tone. Not fast, 2nd brother and 5th brother have already practiced 6 levels of Qi, and I'm a bit slow. Uncle 11, could you please introduce me to the situation of Yunwu Mountain? Li Zisheng changed the topic. There are several hot springs around Yunwu Mountain, which are shrouded in mist all year round, so it is called Yunwu Mountain. Yunwu Mountain has 10 acres of spiritual fields, with 1 acre for you to manage on your own. These hot springs have many effects on spiritual plants and medicines, and water needs to be introduced into the spiritual fields. Usually, there are dedicated clan members taking care of the spiritual fields, so you don't have to be distracted. Yunwu Mountain is backed by a wilderness mountain range, with a majority of wild beasts. They have not yet activated their spiritual intelligence and do not understand cultivation. You can set up a small formation over there. There are several villages and towns below Yunwu Mountain. They will go up the mountain to seek help if they have any problems. You can help them solve them. Every year, they need to go to the spiritual testing platform at the foot of the mountain to test the spirits of their tribe. Zisheng, I'll leave this to you. I'm going back to Yunling Peak to report. You work hard to cultivate, and the family will still rely on you in the future. Li Wushan took Li Zisheng and walked through Yunwu Mountain, introducing everything about Yunwu Mountain one by one before leaving. The instructions from each elder of the family to Li Zisheng are to work hard and cultivate, and in the future, the family will rely on you. All with sincerity and sincere hope. Li Zisheng first went to the back mountain to take a look at the wilderness mountain range, inspected it, and found that there were no monsters, only some wild beasts. At the junction of Yunwu Mountain and Wilderness Mountain Range, a first-order medium-grade fog formation is arranged at the lowest point of a V-shaped formation. There is a lot of fog here, which is very suitable for setting up a fog formation. Slowly, clouds and mist began to gather here. I believe that in a few days, the clouds and mist will fill the entire valley, so there is no need to worry about wild beasts attacking the spiritual field. Then Li Zisheng inspected the 10-acre spiritual field, which was being taken care of by his tribe. With a simple greeting, Li Zisheng arrived at the spiritual field he could plant. Divide the purple sparks and yellow tooth rice seeds into 2 pieces and scatter them in this acre of spiritual field, instructing the tribe members to help take care of them. After dealing with everything outside, Li Zisheng arrived at the station cave, a 3-bedroom cave with a living room, a table, and 4 benches at the entrance. The 2 houses behind the living room are smaller than the living room, arranged in a zigzag pattern. Most of the spiritual energy of Yunwu Mountain has been transferred to the 10-acre spiritual field by the formation, which is not enough for Li Zisheng to cultivate. Li Zisheng arranged the Sankai killing formation on the periphery, covering the entire cave. He chose one of the rooms and set up the gathering spirit formation. Arrange everything, then go out and say hello to everyone, and Li Zisheng starts practicing. Li Zisheng meditates on the soul-splitting technique again and studies it again. Although Li Zisheng would occasionally meditate and simulate the practice of soul-splitting technique from the beginning, he still wanted to do some deduction when he was about to start practicing. After adjusting all the states, Li Zisheng began to cultivate the soul-splitting technique. The spiritual consciousness in the sea of consciousness had just begun to split, and a severe pain stimulated Li Zisheng's brain, which was 100 times more painful than cutting flesh and fingers. Li Zisheng couldn't resist the intense pain and temporarily stopped. The whole process took less than 10 seconds. After Li Zisheng gave up, there was still a persistent pain in Xiaowei, and Li Zisheng's forehead was covered in beads of sweat. Is this a technique practiced by humans? This kind of pain is not acceptable to humans, even with anesthesia, it cannot numb spiritual consciousness. Li Zisheng muttered to himself. After resting for a while, Li Zisheng came to the sky above Yunwu Mountain, overlooking the entire Yunwu Mountain, enjoying the cloud and mist fairyland of Yunwu Mountain, to suit the frustration caused by the soul-splitting technique. Someone has split up before and gone crazy, which indicates that someone has endured this pain. Our ancestors are truly talented. Since our ancestors were able to do it, why can't I? Where is Li Zisheng inferior? My soul is far beyond that of an ordinary person, and I can't even pass the pain of division. How can I compete with heaven for longevity? Isn't this world just another time spent in vain, doing nothing and being eliminated by time in this world? Li Zisheng thought to himself, and his fighting spirit began to ignite again. He returned to the cultivation room and did it again. Li Zisheng once again collapsed and gained his first experience. This time, he persisted for a minute. Although it was painful, it gave Li Zisheng hope. Every time I make a little progress, I will definitely succeed in the end. In the following days, Li Zisheng began his practice of self-harm, practicing this soul-splitting technique every day, and his willpower became increasingly resilient. 2 months have passed, and Li Zisheng can now adapt to this pain and fully split his spiritual consciousness. However, he is not in a hurry to split, and there is still a fusion stage ahead. I don't know if there will be any other situations in fusion. The pain sensation is written in the annotations of the soul-splitting technique, but during the fusion stage, one becomes obsessed and no one records it. Therefore, Li Zisheng naturally attaches more importance to it. For the next 2 months, Li Zisheng has been honing his will and practicing this soul-splitting technique. Before preparing to split, Li Zisheng inspected all the surroundings and explained everything to start, once again starting his cultivation. Li Zisheng quickly split the spirit consciousness into 2 halves. A strange situation happened, and the 2 groups of spirit consciousness had the same idea. One idea of Li Zisheng, 2 groups of spirit consciousness implemented at the same time, 1 collision. Buzz, buzz, ah! Li Zisheng was hit by 2 waves of pain and fell directly to the ground. He screamed in agony, holding his head in both hands and tearing at his hair. His face turned red, and his blood vessels swelled, as if they were about to burst. Hair was pulled out one by one, and Li Zisheng forced himself to count it carefully. 1, 2, 3. Slowly calmed down, but many parts of his head were scratched by Li Zisheng himself. The blood had now solidified, and the entire head was covered in bloodstains. His hair had also been stripped naked. 3 days passed and finally came to a stop. Li Zisheng regained his composure slightly. He dared not imagine or command the movement of 2 spiritual consciousness groups anymore. He began to practice soul-splitting technique, feeling extremely difficult. Controlling the cultivation of 2 spiritual consciousness groups had reached his saturation point, but the speed of spiritual consciousness growth was very fast. After the previous split, there was no more spiritual consciousness to control the 2 spiritual consciousness groups. Just a few thoughts would make the 2 spiritual consciousness groups collide incessantly, causing twice the pain in one collision. It's strange not to go crazy. 10 days later, the spiritual consciousness had risen to the size before the split, and now its growth was extremely slow. Li Zisheng wanted to try to merge the 2 groups of spiritual consciousness. Li Zisheng began practicing according to the records of the soul-splitting technique, and the 2 spiritual consciousness groups began to attract each other in the sea of consciousness, but did not merge. They slowly began to rotate, like a Tai Chi Bagua diagram. Slowly, the 2 clusters of spiritual consciousness began to shrink, dividing into threads and swimming towards the center, forming a small cluster of spiritual consciousness in the middle, but not under the control of Li Zisheng. 10 days later, a spiritual consciousness finally formed, which was twice as large as before the split. Now, Li Zisheng's spiritual consciousness is comparable to that of a peak cultivator practicing qi. The spiritual exploration has reached a distance of 10 zhang, and what we see is clearer than before, which is twice as much as only 5 zhang before. After the fusion of spiritual consciousness, Li Zisheng did not rush out of the level, but slowly practiced, recalling the entire cultivation process. Record the entire process one by one on the soul-splitting technique. 1 month later, Li Zisheng left the seclusion, and after half a year of cultivation, he finally put an end to the practice of soul-splitting technique in seclusion. Nowadays, whether it's practicing the Chaoyang sword technique, the speed is also faster than before, and it can control more spiritual energy and absorb it faster. The scorching sun has already reached a certain level of maturity. The technique of restraining breathing can hide 20% of cultivation, while the technique of rapid wind is twice as fast as before. Although there were many difficulties along the way, it was ultimately a success. After this cultivation, Li Zi's longing for immortality has become even stronger. Li Zisheng tidied himself up and changed into a new green shirt. The scratches on his face were gone, and his hair had grown back. Li Zisheng went out to inspect all the boundaries and found signs of purple spark being eaten. He carefully observed the tooth marks, and his teeth were so small. This should be a very small monster. He only steals a little at a time, not greedy, and may not notice anything if he doesn't look carefully, so he hasn't been discovered by other station cultivators. It seems that he is an extremely intelligent monster. Li Zisheng was not in a hurry and hid nearby, waiting for the appearance of this little guy. Suddenly, a golden little mouse emerged from the ground and continued to steal the purple sparks. The little mouse is only the size of a palm, with 6 whiskers next to its mouth, which has a spirit-seeking effect. Its nose rises and falls to absorb spiritual energy, making it a spirit-eating mouse. Those 6 mustaches are called spirit-seeking mustaches, which have a strong sensing effect on things with spiritual energy. This is its sign, especially greedy. Li Zisheng recognized it at a glance and felt great joy in his heart. Spirit-devouring mice are rare, as they have the ability to search for spirits and are almost the spiritual pet that every cultivator dreams of. But his earthly escape technique is very good, it's difficult to catch. Li Zisheng was not in a hurry to catch it. He opened the Ju Qi bottle and threw a Ju Qi Dan not far from the devouring spirit mouse. The devouring spirit mouse began to use the earth escape technique with vigilance and disappeared. After a while, it reappeared and disappeared again, holding the Ju Qi Dan. Li Zisheng was not in a hurry either. After a while, he lost another gathering Qi pill, and the spirit-eating mouse appeared again. The spirit-eating mouse also discovered Li Zisheng, but took the risk to obtain the gathering Qi pill. So, for 3 or 4 consecutive days, the devouring spirit mouse that came and went also got along very well with Li Zisheng, and could hold it in hand. Li Zisheng's entire bottle of Juki Dan was also eaten by it. Follow me in the future, I'll give you delicious food. Do you think it's okay? Li Zisheng found that the spirit-eating mouse is very humane and intelligent, and can understand what you're saying after spending the past few days together. It considered for a moment, nodded, jumped down, walked 2 meters and looked at Li Zisheng, then walked another 2 meters. Are you asking me to come with you? The spirit-eating mouse nodded, and Li Zisheng followed the spirit-eating mouse through the mist formation. It escaped directly to the ground, no wonder the mist formation couldn't stop it. Chapter 6. Jade Spirit B. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Jade Spirit B. The forest here is dense, and the trees are thick and tall. Even the grass is tall and green, and the sunlight is not very good. How could this place be so lush? There should be spiritual veins or creatures here. If it weren't for the spirit-eating mouse bringing him over, he wouldn't have discovered this place at all. The forest here is too dense, and nothing inside can be seen. Even though I feel extraordinary here now, relying on Li Zisheng's Tenjiang spiritual consciousness, I still haven't found where the spiritual object is, let alone hope that people can observe the situation here in space and realize what's different. Jin Mao, which direction should we explore? Jin Mao was named by Li Zisheng for the spirit-eating mouse. Li Zisheng couldn't see any problem and could only ask for help from the spirit-eating mouse. The spirit-eating rat walked 100 or 200 meters towards the dense area, and Li Zisheng discovered a problem through his spiritual sense. There was a cave 40 to 50 meters long ahead, and inside it was a spiritual spring. A group of bees had built a honeycomb above the spiritual spring, surrounded by forests. Do you want to eat honey? Li Zisheng smiled, and the spirit-eating mouse nodded, closed its eyes, and extended its tongue to lick its mouth with a lingering aftertaste. Then it opened its eyes again, and the expression of enjoyment became painful. It seemed that the spirit-eating mouse had eaten it secretly and even suffered losses. Well, I'll lead them away later. You can go in and steal more, and let me try it too. After discussing with each person and mouse, Li Zisheng used his sword to cut down some branches that were not easy to burn, piled them up at the entrance of the mountain, and began to light the branches. The fire was not very big, but the branches produced a lot of smoke, which Li Zisheng fanned into the cave. In no time, the smoke in the cave grew more and more, and the group of bees couldn't bear it. They all came out and discovered the culprit, Li Zisheng. Led by the first-class queen bee, they flew in groups towards Li Zisheng. Li Zisheng panicked and quickly flew with his sword, using the technique of rapid wind to escape. The speed of the bee swarm was not slow, even faster than Li Zisheng, and the distance between the two was getting closer and closer. Suddenly discovered a lake, and Li Zisheng flew directly into the lake. Some bees flew in, but were all killed by Li Zisheng, while the rest remained on the lake. Fortunately, this lake is not small, and Li Zisheng came out from the other end. Li Zisheng flew towards the direction of returning to Yunwu mountain, and on a small hill, he saw Jin Mao holding a beehive, jumping and waving his small hands to greet him. When Li Zisheng flew over, Jin Mao was sucking on the honey in the hive, and there was still a lot of honey left. Li Zisheng left a portion for Jin Mao and collected all the other honey in a bottle. He discovered many bee eggs and quickly collected them in a box, with about 100 or 200 bee eggs. Li Zisheng casually hung the beehive on a tree and left with golden hair. This colony had a first-class queen bee, and with nearly 1,000 bees, even the foundation building cultivators dared not confront it head-on. Not long after Li Zisheng left, the queen bee smelled the scent and rushed over with a group of bees. A group of bees surrounded the hive, and many bees entered. The queen came out of the hive, quickly flapping her wings and making a buzzing sound. The speed was much faster, and it was obvious that the queen was very angry. She wandered around the small hill but couldn't find Li Zisheng. Helpless, she had to fly back with the swarm and hive. Li Zisheng has always lived a life of asceticism and has not had a deep understanding of spiritual beasts. Jin Mao has a great reputation and is well known in the cultivation world. However, Li Zisheng is not aware of this bee. After Li Zisheng returned, he conducted several days of research on honey. I found that drinking directly has a certain therapeutic effect, and the damage from fighting against the bee colony has improved. For spiritual plants, spiritual medicines have a certain promoting effect on growth. Not only the therapeutic effect of honey on spiritual plants and spiritual medicines, but also the promoting effect of honey alone, is worth investing energy and resources into cultivating by Li Zisheng. To hatch these bee eggs, you need to know some knowledge about animal husbandry. It seems like you need to go to the local market, and the golden hair is also a bit eye-catching. You need a spirit beast bag, and after the bee eggs hatch, you also need a spirit beast bag. Thinking of this, Li Zisheng remembered that the storage bags in the green forest village that had been seized before had not been opened. Li Zisheng began to organize all his current assets. Because Chen Shu needed a large amount of spirit stones to open a distillery, he took 100 spirit stones, a first-level medium-grade mist formation, a first-level top-grade golden light sword, and the storage bags of the 6 people who ambushed him last time he destroyed the Green Forest village. The 5 people who took the initiative first didn't have much, they only had 5 low-level magical tools, totaling 32 spirit stones. The 2 Chi Cultivation 6-layer Green Forest cultivators who later took action, their swords were both exquisite items in the first-level medium-level magical tools, much better than the first-level medium-level Gung Gold sword before Li Zisheng. The 2 of them combined had 53 spiritual stones. A secret book of the sword and sword formation, a bottle of Chi gathering pill, and a first-class ice-piercing talisman. Li Zisheng gave up all the other scattered things directly. The cultivators in this Green Forest village usually don't have too many spiritual stones. They often go out to rob homes and houses, and except for the spiritual stones needed for short-term cultivation, they will equip themselves with everything else. They don't have a heaven and earth, and most of the spiritual stones are used for cultivation. They don't have the resources to learn various cultivation skills, and their income mainly comes from robbing homes and hunting monsters. The first-level premium Ice Sting Talisman is even more expensive than the first-level premium Flame Talisman. 2 cultivators who practice 6 levels of Chi each have 1, which is already very good. One of them was killed directly by Li Zisheng's Fiery Talisman because he didn't have time to use the Ice Sting Talisman, which allowed him to obtain an Ice Sting Talisman from his storage bag, which can serve as Li Zisheng's current trump card. In this way, Li Zisheng now has 185 spirit stones, 2 bottles of Chi gathering pills, a top-notch Ice Sting Talisman, a top-notch golden light sword, a mid-level Gung Gold sword, 2 mid-level swords, 5 mid-level magical tools, a set of mist formation, a set of 3 talents formation with soul attacks, 2 initial alchemy solutions, and 1 2E formation secret book. Take out some miscellaneous things. After organizing his things, Li Zisheng left the cave. Jin Mao was looking at the spiritual plants and elixirs in the spiritual field, drooling and turning his head to look at Li Zisheng. A pitiful expression and a drooling expression made Li Zisheng angry and want to laugh. I want to go out and get you a spirit beast bag. You are not allowed to steal any spiritual medicine at home, and you must also take care of these spiritual fields. When you come back, I will have a reward. Li Zisheng said, taking out a bottle of spiritual honey and gesturing to Jin Mao for a reward, shaking his hand. At first, Jin Mao had a bitter melon face, but when he heard that there was a reward upon returning, he immediately became excited and climbed up to the spirit honey bottle with Li Zisheng's foot. The speed was astonishing, and he reached out to grab it, but it couldn't move. I can't give it to you now, this is a reward. You have to exchange it for your credit. Take good care of the spiritual field, and when you come back, I will give it to you. Li Zisheng naturally won't let Jin Mao get it first, after all, he has just been subdued and Jin Mao is so smart. We need to set some rules, otherwise it will be difficult to discipline him in the future. Li Zisheng watered his spiritual field with some vitality water, which added a small amount of spiritual honey to the water. Because Lingmi has the function of promoting and inducing growth, the water prepared is called vitality water by Li Zisheng. Say hello to the tribe and leave Yunwu Mountain. King Fengfang City. Li Zisheng arrived at a restaurant with 2 floors, about 100 or 200 square meters. There was a gate in the middle and a staircase on the right. The entrance of the restaurant had a sign called Jinsheng Distillery. This is a distillery built by Uncle Chen based on Li Zisheng's ideas, and it has been in operation for half a year now. The first floor is somewhat popular, while the second floor is relatively less popular. Li Zisheng walked up the stairs on the right to the second floor. At this point, Uncle Chen had already noticed Li Zisheng's arrival and led him to the kitchen. The kitchen staircase led down from the second floor, and the kitchen looked at 3 or 2 people. Slowly, the 2 of them arrived at the basement from a room in the backyard. Some houses were built in the basement, and a first-class defense formation was set up outside, which had the effect of isolating spiritual consciousness. Although Li Zisheng's spiritual consciousness had reached the peak of qi cultivation, it was still a bit difficult to see everything in the basement. Young master, I built Zisheng Distillery according to your idea, and I smashed most of my family into it. Zisheng Distillery has been in operation for half a year now. The reputation gradually opened up. The popularity of the first floor is increasing, but there are still not many people coming from the second floor, and we are still in a loss-making state. In another month or two, we won't be able to hold on anymore. Uncle Chen gave Li Zisheng a brief overview of his situation, including his own difficulties, which was a bit headache-inducing. However, Uncle Chen showed more respect towards Li Zisheng. Although it was a bit difficult, it only explained the situation, not complaining to Li Zisheng. Uncle Chen, don't worry for now. When doing business, there will be losses in the early stage. If there are no losses in the early stage, how can we increase popularity by making everyone profitable? If there are not many people, how can there be profits in the later stage? Li Zisheng had anticipated and comforted Uncle Chen with a smile. Seeing Li Zisheng so confident, Uncle Chen became less anxious. Uncle Chen, how many people are there in Zisheng Distillery now? Can you believe it? Li Zisheng is more concerned about people's issues, and business will eventually improve. You underestimate your Uncle Chen too much. Uncle Chen has been in the loose cultivation world for decades and still has some connections. Moreover, cultivation in the loose cultivation world is very difficult. Our work here is simple and we also have a certain income. I usually give them some spiritual wine to assist in cultivation. At present, including Zhang Quan and me, there are a total of 9 people, and you, Uncle Chen, can manage them. And you don't have to worry about cooking skills either. The diet of seedlings is absolutely unique. Ancestors used to make meals, and his cultivation techniques are also related to eating, so he really likes this place. Uncle Chen showed off with a confident smile. That's good, Uncle Chen. This time, I'll bring you some spiritual honey. After researching, I found that this spiritual honey has a certain therapeutic effect and a good taste. You can study it and add some to the spiritual wine, which should be helpful for business. If the effect is good, I'll give you some of this spiritual honey regularly in the future. Li Zisheng didn't say much when he saw Uncle Chen's confidence, so he gave him some of the spiritual honey. What kind of spiritual honey is this? It can still be kept regularly. Do you have a spiritual bee? Uncle Chen asked in surprise. I have obtained some bee eggs, but they have not hatched yet. This time, I want to buy some information on insect breeding and see how to hatch them. Buy another alchemy furnace and go back to learn alchemy, Li Zisheng replied. I don't have a deep understanding of insect breeding. You can go to the baling store and have a look. However, I have some news about the alchemy furnace. This news still comes from the distillery. Originally, there was a casual cultivator who had a past alchemist because he did not have a fire spirit root and was unable to refine pills. He had no intention of selling ancestral items. But he went out to hunt monsters and injured his meridians, so he had no choice but to sell him for spiritual pills to heal his wounds. Chapter 7. Dan Furnace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Dan Furnace. Zisheng Distillery, Backyard. A middle-aged man wearing a green shirt, with a thin figure and a pale face, had a dilapidated alchemy furnace in front of him. Li Zisheng and Uncle Chen awkwardly glanced at each other, while Uncle Chen shook his head in disgust. Wang Yong, is this also called an alchemy furnace? It's a bit old, isn't it? Can this still be used for alchemy? Faced with Uncle Chen's questioning, Wang Yong felt a bit embarrassed, but still persevered and said. Chen Gu, you can't say that. This is a first-class alchemy furnace. Although it's a bit worn out, there's absolutely no problem with alchemy. If it weren't for my urgent shortage of spirit stones, I wouldn't have planned to sell them. After all, they are ancestral items. I don't want much, I'm familiar with them. Can you give me 200 spirit stones? A intact first-class alchemy furnace doesn't have 1,000 spirit stones, can you buy them? When Wang Yong and Uncle Chen were arguing, Li Zisheng was carefully studying this alchemy furnace. After all, he had some knowledge about alchemy. This alchemy furnace is really tempting. The first-grade alchemy furnace is indeed expensive and can be considered as a family heritage. I took a look at this alchemy furnace, and many of its core parts were also broken. When refining pills, it should affect the success rate. If the success rate is reduced by 1 or 2%, the price of the lost spiritual medicine will not be a little bit. After studying, Li Zisheng pointed out a question related to alchemy. At this moment, Wang Yong was a bit at a loss. He wanted to sell it to the Bai Ling store, but they didn't accept it. It was too old and the spiritual materials after melting were probably unusable, which also delayed his efforts. The alchemy also leaked, affecting the success rate. It seems that your brother is an alchemist. Let's see. I have a family tradition of alchemy experience here, and I have sold it to you along with this alchemy experience. You give me 100 spirit stones, and I'll make friends with you. In the future, I'll buy pills from you and give you a discount. Li Zisheng picked up his experience in alchemy and took a brief look. He found that there were 5 types of elixirs at the back, all aimed at spiritual beasts. 1 was a first-level top grade, 3 was a first-level middle grade, and 1 was a first-level lower grade. One of the first-level middle grade elixirs was called the Qi Ling Dan, which had an enlightening effect on the wisdom of spiritual beasts. The intelligence of spirit beasts is crucial, equivalent to the spiritual roots of cultivators. Their lifespan is usually long, but their intelligence improvement is slow. As their intelligence improves, their cultivation speed also increases. Although the level of the elixir is a bit low, it is also a rare elixir. Since Brother Wang has said so, although it's a bit worn out, I'll see if I can find someone to repair it. That's 100 spirit stones. Uncle Chen saw something was wrong and wanted to stop it. Wang Yong was quick-witted, holding Uncle Chen with one hand and Li Zisheng with the other, with a smile on his face. Okay, that's settled. Holding Li Zisheng's spirit stone, he walked out of the backyard without looking back and happily walked away. Young master, don't think about repairing this alchemy furnace. It's too broken. Is there anything in this alchemy experience that makes you tempted? Uncle Chen couldn't figure out why he bought it. Jiang is still old and spicy, as Uncle Chen noticed. The main thing that caught Li Zisheng's heart was the elixir. Li Zisheng didn't plan to use this elixir for long, but only used it to practice. During this period of time, the first-level medium-grade alchemy furnace also required several hundred spirit stones. Although this alchemy furnace was old and dilapidated, it was enough for him to practice. Uncle Chen is still impressive. There are indeed some things in my alchemy experience that have captivated me. I am now interested in raising spirit beasts, and although there will be a lot of resources to invest, there will also be many gains. The resource consumption of spirit beasts is no less than that of a cultivator. If resources are not invested properly, the spirit beasts that raise spirit beasts will not be effective. Spirit bees are still necessary, but other spirit beasts are still kept in small numbers. Cultivators compete with heaven for life, and time resources are limited. Chen Shuyu said to Li Zisheng with a long focus. Li Zisheng left the Jinsheng Distillery and used the technique of breathing to adjust his cultivation level to the 4th level of Qi cultivation. He wanted to go to the street stall first and see if there was a chance to pick up any leaks. Li Zisheng arrived at a stall where the vendor was dressed in black, wearing a hat, unable to see his expression clearly. He was holding a sword in his hand, exuding a murderous aura, indicating that he was the owner who had experienced countless battles. Li Zisheng secretly used his spiritual sense to investigate and found that he had a cultivation level of 9 levels of Qi cultivation. Suddenly, he looked up and saw that someone was using his spiritual sense to examine him, but he didn't know who it was. His spiritual sense was not strong enough for Li Zisheng. Li Zisheng was also startled. It seemed that in the future, he could not use his spiritual sense to check others casually. After tidying up his mood, Li Zisheng came to his booth because it had what he wanted. How do you sell this beast guarding technique? 50 spirit stones, no two prices. The voice was a bit hoarse, without any emotion, giving the impression that it was just not close to strangers. Few people buy the royal beast technique, which he obtained from killing a person who has raised many spiritual beasts. However, there are not many low-level cultivators who raise spiritual beasts, and no one has bought them. He lowered the price very low. Usually, it is impossible for a secret book to have 50 spirit stones. Very few people buy the royal beast technique, 50 spirit stones. Can you sell me this spirit insect list together? Li Zisheng saw a spirit insect list next to him. Okay. Many people actually have the spirit insect list, which is quite rampant. It is not like the royal beast technique. If you don't raise spirit beasts, you basically don't buy them. However, the spirit insect list is a basic common sense. When exploring outside, understanding these things can sometimes be helpful. Li Zisheng, who bought the royal beast technique, strolled around the street stall and didn't see anything to pick up or what he wanted, so he went to the baling shop. Baling store is the largest and most comprehensive storefront in Qingfangfang City. Baling store is a store operated by the Luyun sect. Within the influence of the Luyun sect, there is basically one baling store in every neighborhood, and there is no need to rent from the neighborhood. I have some things here that I want to sell. Can you help me see how much they can be worth? Li Zisheng took out 7 magic weapons and some scattered items that were confiscated from the Green Forest village, including his first-level medium-grade gung gold sword. The staff of the baling store looked at the things on the table, looked up at Li Zisheng, and thought to themselves that this cultivator may be a highly cultivated cultivator, definitely not just as simple as practicing 4 layers of qi. 5 first-level lower-level magical tools, 1 with 30 spiritual stones, is 150 spiritual stones, 3 first-level middle-level magical tools, according to 80 spiritual stones, is 240 spiritual stones, 1 storage bag is 20, and 7 storage bags are 140. Let me help you calculate the other 30 pieces together, 560 spiritual stones together. What do you think? The market price for first-order lower-grade magic weapons is around 100 to 150, and here we charge 80. It seems that the purchase and resale of these first-order mid-grade magic weapons is quite cost-effective. What is the price of the spirit beast bag here? 50 spirit stones for the lower level, 200 spirit stones for the middle level, and 500 spirit stones for the upper level of the spirit beast bag. So expensive. This price is a bit beyond Li Zisheng's expectations. It is even more expensive than the corresponding level of magic tools. The production of spirit beast bags is not easy, and the price is usually higher than that of magic tools. The salesperson looked at Li Zisheng's surprised expression, and his expected reaction was not significant. Many low-level cultivators are unwilling to raise spirit beasts because they require a large amount of resources to invest, and building a foundation requires resources. Whenever there is an opportunity to raise spirit beasts, they will come to purchase spirit beast bags and be amazed by the price. The store staff have become accustomed to it. This price is too expensive, can it be a bit cheaper? Li Zisheng definitely wants to buy it, whether it's a spirit bee or a golden hare. If the baling store doesn't agree, he can only go to Uncle Chen to get some spirit stones. 450 spirit stones, just treat it as a friend and hope that Taoist friends will visit our baling store more in the future. The salesperson also knows that there are not many people who buy spirit beast bags, and feels that Li Zisheng is a powerful cultivator, hoping that he will visit our baling store more often. I want to buy some green spirit rice. Green spirit rice can be eaten directly or refined into lingyin pill, a first order inferior pill. 5 pieces of green spirit rice and 1 kilogram of spirit stones. I'll buy 35 pounds. Then I'll buy 20 pieces of spirit stone spirit charcoal. After calculating, I still have 195 spirit stones left after buying a spirit beast bag. After buying 35 pounds and adding 20 pieces of spirit stone spirit charcoal, all the spirit stones have been spent. Li Zisheng left the baling shop and looked at the coming and going cultivators. Many of them were busy bargaining and buying what they needed. Li Zisheng sighed and said, "What cultivates immortality is resources, and everyone is busy rushing for resources. These spirit stones are not enough to spend. Every time we come to the market, the spirit stones are spent to the fullest. I hope Jinsheng Distillery can make a profit soon." After Li Zisheng finished speaking, he headed towards Yunwu Mountain and made several detours along the way. He found that no one was following him, so he flew directly back to Yunwu Mountain. This time, Li Zisheng safely returned to Yunwu Mountain without encountering any ambushes, which made him feel good. He just arrived at the cave. Jin Mao approached and brought Li Zisheng to the side of the spiritual field. Li Zisheng smiled and gave Jin Mao some honey. Jin Mao lay contentedly beside the spiritual field, continuing to monitor and protect it. Li Zisheng arrived at the cave and began flipping through the list of spiritual insects, first figuring out what kind of bee this was and what the function of spiritual honey was. After a while, Li Zisheng found a bee called Jade Spirit Bee in a relatively advanced position based on its characteristics. The head is big, the tail is small, with short wings and green eyes. The whole body is crystal clear except for the eyes. Warm and gentle in nature, not easily attacked, and not highly aggressive. Spiritual honey has vitality and healing effects. Spiritual plant medicine absorbs the vitality of spiritual honey, promotes growth, and can be used to refine longevity pills. Long-term use can increase lifespan. In this cultivation world that competes with heaven for life, this honey with vitality characteristics is so precious. If it weren't for the lack of attack, its ranking would only be higher. Li Zisheng held back his excited emotions and flipped through the royal beast technique. Most of the spirit insect eggs were identified through their essence and blood. After a day of learning, Li Zisheng learned the technique of allowing spirit insects to recognize their masters in the beast control technique. He set up a spirit gathering array in a corner of the cave, put over 100 bee eggs inside, and used the beast control technique to force the essence and blood to spray onto the bee eggs, which were quickly absorbed by the bee eggs. After finishing these things, Li Zisheng flew towards the honey hole, but when he arrived at the bee hole, he found that the jade spirit bee was nowhere to be found. The one occupying the bee hole was a bloodthirsty spider at the top of the first order. Li Zisheng immediately ran back. Spiders are usually the natural enemies of bees. Spiders are highly venomous, and a web that pounces on them can kill a large swarm of bees. The arrival of Li Zisheng caught the attention of the bloodthirsty spider. It immediately regarded Li Zisheng as an enemy invading its territory, and ran towards him with its 8 legs. A spider web flew out of its mouth, attempting to trap Li Zisheng. Li Zisheng used the gale technique to dodge the spider web. The bloodthirsty spider leapt up on 8 legs, ready to engulf Li Zisheng under its belly. Li Zisheng seized the opportunity and threw a first-class ice-piercing talisman towards its eyes. The bloodthirsty spider was repelled and slightly injured. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Li Zisheng's imperial envoy Flying Sword escaped back to Yunwu Mountain. Fortunately, the bloodthirsty spider was injured by the ice spike and did not catch up. After returning to the cave, Li Zisheng felt a moment of fear and regretted not notifying his family or Uncle Chen earlier. Otherwise, the jade spirit bee would not have been destroyed by the bloodthirsty spider group, and he almost lost his life. But it's no use regretting now. Let the bloodthirsty spider live for a while longer. The next time we go to Qingfengfeng City, please invite Uncle Chen to come and kill the bloodthirsty spider and avenge today. Chapter 8. Alchemy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Alchemy. Yunwu Mountain, a cave on the mountaintop in front of Zisheng was an alchemy furnace, which was purchased from Wang Yong. A small pot under the alchemy furnace was filled with spiritual charcoal, which began to emit a scorching flame under Zisheng's spiritual power transmission. It has been 2 months since Zisheng escaped from the bee-hole, and he has been flipping through the initial solution of alchemy and simulating the process of alchemy. It's time to start trying manual alchemy. Only in practice can more problems be discovered. I saw the flames shining on the alchemy furnace, which was getting hotter and hotter. Seeing that the alchemy furnace was almost heated, Zisheng put 2 liang of green spirit rice into it. The Yinling pill only requires a spiritual material called Qingling rice, which is heated by spiritual charcoal and combined with the alchemist's alchemy method to control the fire. Melt the spiritual material first, stabilize the alchemy furnace, and prevent the spiritual material inside the alchemy furnace from being evaporated by high temperature after melting, resulting in the loss of spiritual material. After melting, the temperature of the formed elixir will gradually decrease, and the spirit liquid that has been melted into liquid will be condensed into elixir through alchemy techniques. After becoming a pill, maintain the heat and warm it up for a period of time in order to form a stable and non-disintegrating waste pill. With the addition of 2 liang of green spirit rice into the furnace, it quickly turned into liquid elixir under the heating of spirit charcoal. However, a considerable amount of it flowed directly from the broken hole in the alchemy furnace and was smelled by Zisheng. He lowered his head and looked at the taste of the green spirit rice left behind. He shook his head, changed his method, stabilized the alchemy furnace, reduced the spiritual power delivery to the spirit charcoal, and lowered the temperature. A quarter of an hour passed, and Zisheng began to coagulate pills, but found that regardless of the transportation method, there was no way to coagulate pills. By increasing the temperature again, a lot of Qingling rice evaporated, and over again, the liquid of Qingling rice was no longer enough to solidify into a pill. Zisheng sat down in silence, meditating to restore spiritual power while recalling the process of alchemy just now. I found that I couldn't control the heat of the pill when it was coagulated. If the temperature was too high, the pill would easily disintegrate. If the temperature was too low, I couldn't successfully coagulate the pill. In no time, Zisheng began his journey of alchemy again. A few days have passed. Although Zisheng would summarize his shortcomings after each alchemy session and constantly review the initial understanding of alchemy and Wang Yongzu's alchemy experience, the difficulty of alchemy far exceeded Zisheng's imagination. He has an advantage that others do not have, which is that his spiritual strength is far stronger than others, and he can see the changes in the alchemy process, which is more meticulous than others. But he never succeeded in refining a pill, which shows the difficulty of alchemy. No wonder, although alchemists are very popular, there are not many alchemists all along, and they still need some talent. However, he also summarized several reasons for the failure of alchemy. Firstly, the melting should be fast. The time for Qingling rice to melt in the furnace must be fast. The slower the time, the more volatile it will be, and the less spiritual liquid it will form. Secondly, it takes a long time to cool down. High-temperature spiritual fluids take a long time to cool down, and it is necessary to wait for all spiritual fluids to stabilize. If the time is not enough, it will be cold outside and hot inside, and the coagulation pill will easily collapse. Thirdly, the heat of condensed pills, which is difficult for every alchemist to control. The heat of each type of pill is different, and one can only rely on experience to try more. This is also why alchemists are most likely to fail in the early stages of refining unfamiliar pills. Fourthly, there is air leakage in the Dan furnace. There is a hole in the Dan furnace, which not only leaks some spiritual materials, but also adds an additional variable, making it more difficult for Zisheng to control the temperature. As for the difficulties after condensing the pill, Zisheng has not yet reached that stage. The fourth reason for failure, not to mention the third reason, is the average temperature of the spiritual liquid and the optimal time for condensing the pill, which has already made it difficult for Zisheng to grasp. After several days of failure, Zisheng was a little discouraged. He left the cave and wanted to take a tour of Yunwu Mountain to ease his mood. At this moment, Yunwu Mountain is shrouded in clouds and mist, and sunlight shines in from the weak points of the clouds, gently caressing Yunwu Mountain. Zisheng's sword shuttles through the Yunwu Mountain, sometimes being found by the sun through the clouds, and sometimes penetrating into the clouds and hiding inside, as if playing hide and seek with the sun. Half an hour passed, and Zisheng inspected the mist formation and spiritual field on Yunwu Mountain. He also greeted most of the tribe members and flew directly to Yunwu Mountain. Stepping on the golden lightsaber, opening his hands and letting the sunlight shine on him, he gazed down at the entire Yunwu Mountain, feeling a sense of relaxation and closeness to nature, and his entire mood was relaxed. Zisheng stayed for an hour, longing for the scenery of Yunwu Mountain, unwilling to leave, forgetting time, as if he had taken a nap, opened his eyes, and felt a hint of enlightenment in his heart. He flew directly into the cave and began practicing the Chaoyang sword technique. The rising sun and scorching sun changed back and forth like fire, their speed getting faster and faster, time and time again. After finishing work. Haha, the east is not bright, the west is bright. The alchemy was not successful, but it has improved my swordsmanship a lot. No matter how I practiced swordsmanship before, there was not much improvement. Rising Sun Dongsheng is more adept than before. Now, using Rising Sun Dongsheng is twice as fast as before, but its spiritual power is only half that of before, which has greatly improved. My understanding of the scorching sun is clearer than before. It seems that the realm is not enough and the quality of spiritual power is not enough. When used, I always feel that there is no power from the sword technique. But there's no need to rush. Once you break through the later stage of Qi cultivation, you can fully unleash the power of the scorching sun like fire. In the following days, Zisheng did not continue to refine pills, but instead focused on meditating and practicing the techniques of calming the breath and rapid wind. As for the initial solution and experience of alchemy, he only occasionally looked at them. Jin Mao still takes care of Ling Tian as usual and regularly asks Zisheng for honey. Buzz, Zisheng was originally meditating and practicing when several jade spirit bees flew around him. He opened his eyes and looked at the jade spirit bees in front of him, with a happy smile on his face. Extending one hand and opening his palm, the conscious jade spirit bee fluttered its small wings and stopped on his palm. Zisheng reached out his other hand and grabbed one of the jade spirit bees. The jade spirit bee did not struggle, but enjoyed it with a smile on its face. Zisheng's face was full of indulgence and caution, afraid of scratching it. Green eyes, big head, crystal clear all over, just a little too small. He looked up and found that there were already over 100 jade spirit bees gathered around him. It seemed that they had all hatched today. Little ones, you all hatched today. I'll take you to your favorite amusement park. Zisheng said as he brought this group of little jade spirit bees to the spiritual field. There are a total of 10 acres of spiritual fields in Yunwu Mountain. 1 acre is managed by the station cultivators, and the other 9 acres of spiritual fields include 2 acres of spiritual medicine, and 7 acres are planted with spiritual rice. More than 100 small jade spirit bees scattered towards the spiritual field, appearing extremely insignificant in front of it. This will be your paradise. You should settle down here. In the past few years, Zisheng whispered to the jade spirit bee. In the next few days, Zisheng guided the jade spirit bee to the cave, hoping that once they got used to it, they would gather a beehive next to the cave. A few days later, Zisheng found that the bee colony had become more persistent, and they seemed to have become more persistent. The time they went out each time also became more regular, and the number of times they went back and forth also increased. Watching the beehive rapidly grow in just a few days, Zisheng's previously worried heart could finally be let go. He knew that this was a swarm of bees building a royal platform, and soon a queen bee would appear. If a bee colony does not have a queen, it will slowly dissipate. Only with a queen can the colony become sustainable, continuously lay eggs, and continuously grow. Li Zisheng watched as the bee colony had stabilized and began to search for the initial solution of alchemy in the cave, summarizing his own alchemy. He planned to alchemy again and use up all the remaining green spirit rice. A few days later, the old alchemy furnace reappeared in the cave. The spiritual charcoal was placed in the brazier below the alchemy furnace, ignited, and infused with spiritual power. The spiritual charcoal began to emit a scorching flame. In no time, put the green spirit rice into the fast transformation method, melt the green spirit rice, control the alchemy furnace with the left hand, and control the temperature of the spiritual charcoal with the right hand. Throughout the entire alchemy process, every detail was done quite proficiently. More than half a month later, Li Zisheng used up all the green spirit rice and gained a lot of experience, but still did not refine the Yinling Dan. Li Zisheng was not discouraged either, because he vaguely felt that he could almost refine it, because once he was close to success. That time, we seized the best opportunity to solidify the Yinling Dan into shape. However, during the process of solidifying the Dan, we did not control it well and opened the furnace early. The result is that the refined Lingyin pill is a waste pill, and the spiritual material inside is not stable inside the pill. It evaporates and produces Dan poison. Eating this kind of pill increases very little spiritual power, and the poison absorbed by cultivators is difficult to remove. However, this has already given Li Zisheng a glimmer of hope, giving him great encouragement. Although he failed, he has gained greater confidence and fighting spirit. Li Zisheng calmed down and recalled this alchemy experience, summarizing it as follows. Firstly, controlling the speed of melting and the duration of cooling is now very proficient and there are basically no problems. Secondly, the control of the temperature of the condensed pill has also improved significantly compared to before, but there is still room for improvement. I have become accustomed to the problem of air leakage in the pill furnace. Thirdly, there is still a significant gap in the process of solidifying the elixir, preventing the leakage of elixir qi, and controlling the duration of solidifying the elixir. Fourthly, in terms of controlling elixirs, skilled alchemists can lower them to an extremely low level. Ordinary pills usually contain some elixirs. When cultivators digest the power of pills, they will lose some of them and also absorb these elixirs. Cultivators who take too many elixirs often have unstable foundations and find it difficult to break through the realm because they have absorbed too much elixir. However, there are also some elixirs and spiritual items that purify erysipelas. Dan 1, there will be patterns on the pill. Some alchemists with high alchemy skills remove most of the poison during the alchemy process, which will cause the pill to have patterns. However, having Dan Wen's pills is generally more popular and the price is much higher than ordinary pills. Li Zisheng left the cave and checked the condition of the Jade spirit bee. It was slightly larger than before. The Jade spirit bee continued to form teams and worked hard back and forth between the hive and the spiritual field. Then he came to Ling Tian and teased Jin Mao. As soon as Jin Mao saw Li Zisheng, he quickly ran over and circled around him, making a squeak sound. After Li Zisheng understood, he gave Jin Mao some honey. You always want spiritual honey, and you haven't made any contribution. You found some spiritual medicine or something. Jin Mao ran towards Ling Tian and called out, Ji. Li Zisheng couldn't help but laugh and cry. As long as you didn't steal this spiritual field, it looks as good as you didn't take care of it. This is not a credit to you. You must not steal the spiritual medicine from the spiritual field. In the future, if you want to find valuable things such as spiritual medicine, spiritual veins, and spiritual minerals, you will have spiritual honey. No matter how Jin Mao protested and shouted, Li Zisheng no longer paid attention. Chapter 9. Planning a Distillery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 10. Bloodthirsty Spider. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Bloodthirsty Spider. The forest near the bee-hole is dense, with tall and straight trees. Surrounded by a quiet and vibrant forest, there should have been fewer bird calls, but more silence. Apart from the rustling of leaves in the wind, there was no other sound, and the silence was a bit terrifying. Uncle Chen and Li Zisheng flew all the way to the back of Yunwu mountain and arrived near the bee cave. If it weren't for Li Zisheng leading the way, Uncle Chen wouldn't have noticed the abnormality here. Young master, if it weren't for you telling me about the situation here, I wouldn't have discovered it. If it weren't for you leading the way, I wouldn't have imagined there was a spiritual spring here. However, upon careful analysis, it is still a bit unusual. This place is far from the edge of monster activity, yet it is so quiet that there are no birds. It is obvious that powerful monster beasts have turned this place into territory. It is definitely unusual for monster beasts to come to places without spiritual energy. This forest is nourished by the spiritual energy emitted by the spiritual spring, and it has grown so tall and lush. They probably haven't been nourished for too long, otherwise they should have turned into spiritual wood. It seems that this spiritual spring has just formed and has great potential for us. After all, Uncle Chen has been wandering in the cultivation world for so many years. By simply looking around, he can determine the situation of the Lingquan. Uncle Chen is indeed impressive. When I first came here, I also felt that this place was unusual. If I didn't come in and take a closer look, I wouldn't be able to find it. So where should we set up this demon-killing array? Li Zisheng asked Uncle Chen for advice. Just in that area, there's a little less forest. Later, I'll lead the bloodthirsty spider there. You activate the formation, and I'll ambush it with a soul-devouring needle. Uncle Chen looked around and chose a slightly empty area. After speaking, the two of them began to set up the formation. Uncle Chen shouted 2 spells at the bee cave, and the bloodthirsty spider quickly flew out of the bee cave with 8 legs. Under Uncle Chen's guidance, it entered the demon-slaying formation. Starting with a loud shout from Li Zisheng, the demon-slaying formation lifted a light shield, and the bloodthirsty spider was blocked by the sudden demon-slaying formation. Touch! The bloodthirsty spider collided with the demon-slaying formation, which had a restraining effect on the monsters. The bloodthirsty spider was immediately bounced off. The light shield of the demon-slaying formation shook a bit unstable. Li Zisheng quickly controlled the formation, and Uncle Chen seized the opportunity to pierce a small soul-piercing needle into the bloodthirsty spider's brain. A green liquid shot out and landed on the grass on the ground. The green grass withered instantly, indicating the toxicity of this liquid. The bloodthirsty spider was absorbed by the soul-devouring needle, constantly shaking its head and brain. The liquid it sprayed out poisoned and withered the surrounding green vegetation. Li Zisheng needs to constantly inject spiritual power to maintain the spiritual light shield of the demon-slaying formation, while Uncle Chen constantly attacks the bloodthirst spider with spells. Zhi! Suddenly, the bloodthirsty spider made a sharp sound, and a small piece flew out of its black head, shooting towards Li Zisheng. Young master, be careful. Uncle Chen was surprised by the sudden incident. He never expected that the bloodthirsty spider had such high intelligence. He knew to kill Li Zisheng first and could also accurately shoot the soul-devouring needle at Li Zisheng. Uncle Chen was well aware of the power of the soul-devouring needle and immediately reminded Li Zisheng that once Li Zisheng was shot, he would be almost hopeless. He reached out urgently to grab it, but how could he reach the speed? What Uncle Chen didn't know was that Li Zisheng's spiritual awareness had reached the peak of qi cultivation, and he was no weaker than him. Li Zisheng tilted his head, and a soul-devouring needle flew past his ear, shooting at the trunk behind him. The trunk exploded, and he casually lifted his hand and knocked the flying trunk away. Uncle Chen didn't have time to be surprised by Li Zisheng, and his anger towards the bloodthirsty spider suddenly rose to its peak. He only saw him take a sip of spirit wine. His cultivation has reached the peak of qi cultivation, and he is almost reaching the foundation building period. He took out a hammer from his storage bag, which kept growing and forming a huge hammer. Flying into the air, the hammer propped up half of the sky, holding the hammer in both hands, shouting and throwing it at the bloodthirsty spider. Ah, 3 hammers of waves. Bang bang, centered around the bloodthirsty spider, the trees around were instantly knocked down by the air waves, and Zisheng was also knocked out, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Zisheng touched his chest and looked at the changes around him. He was also surprised. Is this still the destructive power that can be caused by the Qi training period? A circular open area with a radius of approximately 100 or 200 meters was formed around Chen Shu and the bloodthirsty spider, and all the surrounding forests were flattened. The forest outside the circular open area has also become crooked, and compared to other dense forests, it seems out of place, demonstrating the power of this hammer. Not long after, Uncle Chen fell to the ground, the hammer became smaller and lay next to him. The bloodthirsty spider had turned into a puddle of meat, losing any value. It's a pity. Uncle Chen. Ouch! As soon as Zisheng remembered, a mouthful of blood flew out of his mouth again. He quickly stood up to meditate and recuperate from his injuries. In a short while, after recovering from his injuries, Zisheng came to Uncle Chen and fed him some spiritual honey. He began to clean the battlefield, put away the demon-slaying formation and soul-eating needle, and carried Uncle Chen towards the bee cave. As soon as he arrived at the bee hole, he felt the spiritual energy. Zisheng stopped, took a deep breath of the spiritual energy, and continued walking inside. The more he walked inside, the stronger the spiritual energy became. The bee hole is a bit larger than before, probably dug up by bloodthirsty spiders. After walking 40 to 50 meters, there is a nearly circular open space at the deepest part of the bee hole, which is about 40 to 50 square meters. The bee hole is surrounded by earthen walls, with only the closest earthen wall having a small pond filled with spiritual water, which is constantly stirring up spiritual energy. There is a small mouth on the edge of the spirit pool, and there is a small linear groove below it. I saw some spiritual water overflowing from the spirit pool, flowing through the small mouth, and reaching the central piece of land. Developing this land and creating a spiritual field is definitely a top-quality spiritual field. The entire bee hole looked a bit damp, but it was all spiritual energy. Zisheng took a deep breath and felt that the spiritual energy here was even stronger than the closed room he used for breaking through in his family. If a spirit gathering array is set up here, the concentration of spiritual energy will need to increase by a few points, making it an excellent place for cultivation. Zisheng placed Uncle Chen next to the spirit pool, and he himself sat beside it to start practicing. A few hours later. Cough cough. Uncle Chen's cough interrupted Zisheng's cultivation, and he quickly picked him up, filled a jade bottle with spiritual water, and added some spiritual honey to feed Uncle Chen to drink. In no time, a pure spiritual energy was digested in Uncle Chen's stomach. Without time to ask, Uncle Chen immediately meditated and recuperated from his injury. An hour has passed. Young master, where is this? What are you drinking for me? The spiritual energy is particularly pure and has a strong healing effect. Uncle Chen's body recovered a bit and he looked around, feeling a bit tired, asking Zisheng. This is Lingquan, you see Lingquan is here. What I'm giving you to drink is spring water, and I've added some spiritual honey inside. The spiritual honey is full of vitality and has healing effects. Zisheng saw Uncle Chen's response and pointed to Lingquan, explaining happily. I haven't seen Lingquan either. Only people like you, the young master, who have a deep immortal connection, can find such spiritual creatures. Lingmi is also a good thing for healing wounds. For the vast majority of cultivators, Lingquan is a coveted thing, but few have seen it, let alone Uncle Chen's casual cultivation. Watching Lingquan constantly concealing the spring water, Uncle Chen sighed and said. Turning to the previous battle, Chen Shilingshi swept over Zisheng's body, and his tired face added some self-blame. Young master, I was provoked by the bloodthirsty spider during my previous battle. I released the Overlord hammer recklessly and injured the young master. I deserve to die for this. Please forgive me, young master. Uncle Chen, don't say that. You also care about me. It was only when I was attacked that you were provoked. How could you be guilty? However, Uncle Chen's Overlord hammer is truly powerful. It has already crossed the stage of Qi cultivation and reached the level of foundation building. Li Zisheng still remembers the destructive power of the Bawang hammer, which turned into ruins within a radius of several hundred meters and was flattened to the ground. The air waves directly knocked Li Zisheng away. The Overlord hammer was passed on to me by my master. There are 3 moves. Wave hammer, sweep the army, Mount Tai overrides the top. Each move is stronger than the other. The needed aura is also huge. They all have the power of foundation building. At present, the 3 hammers of waves require me to drink the matching Ba Wan wine to temporarily enhance my strength by 3 layers. I can only release 2 hammers, but I cannot release the strongest 3rd hammer yet. It has drained all the spiritual energy in my body. Uncle Chen recalled past events with a somewhat longing expression, explaining the origin of the Bawang hammer. It turned out that the 3 moves of the Bawang hammer were the secret to building foundations. It was still Uncle Chen given by his father. This wave of 3 hammers is still one of them, but they have not fully exerted their power. Li Zisheng has gained a new understanding of the foundation construction period. However, these wave 3 hammers also require spiritual energy too much. Uncle Chen will try not to use them unless absolutely necessary in the future. What the young master said is that since I practiced the Overlord hammer, I have used the wave 3 hammers twice. As for the latter 2 moves, I have not yet successfully practiced them. Although I have comprehended them, I don't have enough spiritual energy to release them. The Overlord hammer used for the first time using the Wave 3 hammers has been scrapped because it cannot carry so much spiritual energy injection. If it weren't for that hammer being a top-notch first-level magical tool, which exploded after releasing 2 hammers, it would probably not have been possible to kill the golden beast at the peak of that first level last time. You probably won't see me now. I discovered a piece of gold crystal from the belly of the golden eating beast, and thus created this Overlord hammer, which is already the pinnacle of the first-level magic weapon. That time, not only did I have to endure the pain of draining my spiritual energy, but I was also hit by the burst of the Overlord hammer, causing additional damage, and there was no spiritual spring water or spiritual honey to heal my injuries. This time, I saw that the young master was almost hit by the soul-devouring needle, and the master was nowhere to be found. If I can't even protect the young master now, then I will die 100 times without redemption. Uncle Chen also knew the consequences of using the king hammer, but he was really angered at the time, so he disregarded the consequences and used the king hammer. I just didn't expect it to affect Li Zisheng as well. However, it's not bad to be able to kill a gold-eating beast when using the Overlord hammer for the first time. The gold-eating beast mainly feeds on various minerals and is equipped with abnormal defense. It is almost difficult for cultivators of the same level to break through the defense, and it is extremely difficult to kill them. After consuming ore, the golden-eating beast will give birth to gold crystals. Gold crystals are excellent refining materials, and adding a little gold crystals to a regular artifact can increase its power by a few points. Uncle Chen integrated a large piece of gold crystal into the Bawang hammer. No wonder the Bawang hammer is so powerful now. Think about Uncle Chen's equipment, including the Overlord hammer, soul-devouring needle, demon-slaying array, wine pot, and Overlord wine, all of which are top-notch. As for whether Uncle Chen has any other trumps, it's unclear whether he will be defeated by a newly built cultivator based on his current configuration. Uncle Chen, can you defeat the newly built cultivators during your heyday? Li Zisheng asked curiously. When encountering influential foundation building cultivators and those with spiritual tools, even in their heyday, it would be good if they could save their lives. Every cultivator who can build a foundation is not someone with a deep immortal connection, everyone has some trump cards. Remember not to underestimate any foundation building cultivator.